Chapter 698. His tears had not dried, but the grief in Tang Zheng's heart had already gradually turned into anger, as if it was about to burst out of his chest and spurt out. Imperial Advisor, Heavenly Emperor, I want you to be buried with Marshal. Tang Zheng was hysterical as he gnashed his teeth and roared. Marshal, wait for me. I'll take revenge for you. Wait for me to come back. Tang Zheng turned his head and looked at Lan Yu. Lan Yu understood and immediately walked over. What are you going to do? The Imperial Advisor's whereabouts are unknown, so I'll go find the Heavenly Emperor. The fake Heavenly Emperor is dead, so the real Heavenly Emperor will also die and be buried with Marshal. Tang Zheng was filled with killing intent, as if he was a god of death. If God blocked him, he would kill God. If Buddha blocked him, he would destroy Buddha. Lan Yu wanted to say something but hesitated. After hesitating for a moment, he said, I'll go with you. I'll go alone. Take good care of Marshal. Tang Zheng said without any room for refutation. Lan Yu stared deeply into his eyes, understanding his thoughts and emotions, and said, All right, you go, we'll wait for you. Tang Zheng leaped up and jumped down from the balcony on the second floor. A white light also jumped out from the building and jumped onto his shoulder, squeaking. Tang Zheng patted Xiaobai's shoulder, understanding its thoughts, and said, Xiaobai, today we will start a massacre, completely destroy the Imperial Palace, kill that damned Heavenly Emperor. Xiaobai nodded his head heavily, his eyes flickering with flames. Whiz! Tang Zheng turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared without a trace. The security of the Imperial Palace was extremely tight. Ever since Tang Zheng had caused a ruckus in the Imperial residence, this area had entered a state of high alert, combining the light and the dark to cast an inescapable net. After such a long time, there were no longer any abnormalities, so many of the guards' vigilance had weakened by a lot. In addition, the Heavenly Emperor had reappeared, and everything was on the right track. That gave people a huge reassurance. The repair work of the Kokyo was already underway. The Kokyo was one of the spiritual symbols of the island nation. Of course, it couldn't be in such a dilapidated state. The royal family was already very familiar with controlling the feelings of the people. The ordeal this time would not be a blow to them. If they handled it properly, it could even be used as an opportunity to stimulate the people again, gather them together, and work hard to make another leap in the country's strength. Just like after the war, the aftermath of the island nation did not cause the island nation to be unable to recover from the setback. Instead, the people were filled with absolute enthusiasm, causing the country to undergo earth-shaking changes in a short period of time. The national strength soared like a rocket. In the emperor's bedroom, a group of ministers sat around. These were the core figures of the island nation's power. The Sky Emperor sat on the chair, coincidentally the chair that Tang Zheng felt was extremely strange. If Tang Zheng saw it again, he would definitely recognize it. This chair was a miniature version of the Yamada no Orochi. The 8 lifelike heads were no different from the Yamada no Orochi. The island nation's royal family had unknowingly exposed their relationship with the Yamada no Orochi. However, the world no longer knew about the Yamada no Orochi, so they did not discover this secret. The emperor of the island nation knew that his biggest reliance was the Yamada no Orochi. Therefore, he made this chair based on the Yamada no Orochi. It was a symbol of the royal family's power, just like the dragon throne of Huaxia. The emperor looked dispirited, and there was a sickly look between his eyebrows. He was indeed very different from the substitute. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that he was seriously ill. It was indeed inappropriate for him to show his face in public. It was no wonder that he found a substitute. What happened at the Imperial Advisor's residence? Why is there no news from the people you sent? The emperor coughed violently, and asked with an unhappy expression. Your Majesty, the Grand Preceptor's mansion's array formation has been destroyed, and there is a very fierce battle inside. As for the specific situation, our people have not yet sent back any news, so we have to wait a little longer. A minister bowed slightly and said respectfully, Wait. You only know how to make me wait. Do you think I have to wait until everything is settled? The emperor slapped the armrest of the chair and said angrily. The others did not know that the most important thing in the Imperial Advisor's residence was the Yamada no Orochi, and not the Imperial Advisor. They only thought that the emperor was concerned about the imperial advisor's safety. Therefore they comforted him. Your Majesty, please rest assured. The imperial advisor is a master of a generation. His cultivation is unfathomable. Even if there is an enemy, it will be difficult for them to hurt him. They will definitely be defeated by him. What do you know? What nonsense! The emperor said unhappily. Send more people into the imperial advisor's residence. However, you must give them a death order. No matter what they see, they are not allowed to leak a single word to the outside world. Otherwise, they will be killed without mercy. The emperor gave the death order. If the Yamada no Orochi was exposed to the news, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. The emperor did not want this kind of exposure. Although the ministers did not understand the deeper meaning, they still respectfully accepted the order. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside. Everyone's nerves immediately tensed up. The emperor held the armrest of the chair with both hands and leaned forward slightly. His butt even left the chair. He looked like he would run away at any time if the situation was not right. It was comical and laughable. The emperor was already like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. He had been the emperor for most of his life. Now that he was old, he had to be so frightened. He was very afraid of death. Otherwise, he would not have hurriedly invited Li Xiaotian over after hearing that the Li Palace could cure his illness. As long as there was a chance of survival, he was not willing to let it go. The more he lived in this world, the more he would enjoy the privileges and pleasure of being the emperor. If his illness could really be cured, then his good days would be very long. However, he was also a very cautious person. Otherwise, when he was about to let Tang Zheng examine his body, he would still use a substitute. He clearly wanted to use a substitute to test the Li Palace's true strength. If it was a lie and deliberately mystifying, then he, the real one, would not show his face in public again. However, he did not expect so many things to happen. The substitute was actually kidnapped and even lost his life. He often felt a lingering fear. If the person sitting on the chair that day had been him, what would have happened? He was afraid that his fate would not have been much different from the substitutes, perhaps even worse. After all, he was the real emperor, a trump card. In Tang Zheng's hands, he could play a decisive role, something that the substitute could not compare to. But even so, the emperor still did not feel relaxed. Besides the pain, he was also worried that those people would come back in a swirl of dust. The emperor's nerves immediately tensed up when he heard the commotion outside. The bodyguards behind him immediately surrounded him to guard against possible attacks. Your Majesty, let's leave this place first, someone advised. This is my bedroom. Where else can I go? Where else can I go? Quickly send someone to investigate what happened. It's so dark, don't let it be a false alarm, the emperor said firmly. In truth, his heart was beating like a drum. The imperial palace did not allow loud noises. With such a large commotion, something must have happened. Suddenly, a person staggered in and shouted, Your Majesty, there's an assassin. Assassin? Everyone was shocked. Their heartstrings were completely taut. The bodyguards immediately surrounded the emperor and advised, Your Majesty, let's hide for now. The emperor's expression kept changing. Finally, he compromised, All right, let's go. The two bodyguards on his left and right supported him as they walked towards the back of the palace. Bang! With a loud sound, the palace door was smashed into pieces by a few people. Those people fell to the ground weakly and died on the spot. Who are you? Someone asked in island nation language. Tang Zheng coldly snorted and said, I can't hear your bird language. You have harmed the martial arts. I want all of you to be buried with me. If Su Yingtian saw this scene, he would probably be scared out of his wits. He was very different from Tang Zheng. Because of his official status, he would weigh the pros and cons before doing anything. He could not be like Tang Zheng, who did as he pleased. Tang Zheng's actions this time would really provoke a war between the two countries, and even trigger the Third World War. But Tang Zheng's heart was filled with anger. He did not care about these things. Seeing a group of island nation people, the war soul in his hand did not hesitate to kill. Puff! The enemy at the front was immediately cut in half. Immediately, blood splattered everywhere and dyed the palace red. Ah! Screams rose and fell. Those powerless ministers were so scared that they were about to become idiots. Some even lost control of their bowels and were in a sorry state. The emperor didn't have time to go far. He turned his head to look and was immediately scared to death. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. He muttered to himself, "It's him. This demon is here again. Hurry up and stop him. Stop him." The heavenly emperor had already recognized Tang Zheng and was both shocked and overwhelmed with shock. He had always sent out elite troops to search for this person's whereabouts, but in the end, it was as if the other party had disappeared from the face of the earth. Why did he rush into the imperial palace like a madman today? Did he really think that this was a public toilet? Did he really think that he could come and go as he pleased? The emperor felt bitter in his heart. In the history of the emperor, he had never been as sullen as he was. In just a short span of 10 days, he had been killed twice in his headquarters. As the ruler of a country, even the dignity of this country had been completely swept away. Protect the emperor! Protect the emperor! Someone shouted loudly as he pulled the emperor and quickly retreated. Tang Zheng saw the emperor from afar. He would never forget that familiar figure for the rest of his life. Thus he roared, "Emperor, I'm going to kill you!" When the emperor heard this, he staggered and fell to the ground. His originally weak body was actually unable to get up. When the guard saw this, he immediately picked him up and carried him on his shoulder. Then he ran away without stopping. Tang Zheng wanted to kill the emperor, but the palace was already surrounded by guards. Over 100 guards completely blocked the way out. Kill! The guards' eyes turned red as they roared. Tang Zheng could not hear the island nation's language, but he could feel the monstrous killing intent. Chapter 699. Kill without mercy. The 3 words were powerful and resonant, containing the power of a thunderbolt, pouncing forward like a tiger or wolf. The bodyguards used all of their skills to fight with Tang Zheng. The battle was fierce, and cold weapons and firearms were used one after another. Tang Zheng was bold. He shuttled back and forth like flowing water. The War Soul sword emitted a deathly aura, and every strike would reap a few lives. The light of the War Soul sword became more and more resplendent, and the mottled black spots became fewer and fewer. "It's on fire!" Suddenly, a clamor came from outside the door, and flames soared into the sky. These wooden palaces were the best fuel, and as soon as the flames appeared, the fire quickly spread, and the few palaces immediately turned into a sea of fire. A white figure rushed out from the sea of fire, and directly ran into the main hall. He glanced at Tang Zheng from afar, then stepped on the enemy's head and flew towards Tang Zheng. "What the hell is this?" Cries of alarm sounded from all directions, and immediately, someone wanted to kill Xiao Bai. Little White Rabbit leaped into the air and dodged a bullet. When it was still in the air, it opened its mouth and spat out a ball of flame, turning the person who fired the gun into a man on fire. He screamed in pain. Tang Zheng glanced at the sea of flames outside the door and praised, "Xiao Bai, good job. Today, I will completely burn the imperial palace and burn it to ashes." Xiao Bai replied with a squeak, his little eyes rolling in excitement. In the distance, when the emperor saw the sea of flames, he almost fainted from anger. His entire body trembled as he muttered to himself, "The imperial palace has been destroyed by my hands. The imperial palace has been destroyed by my hands." As if he was possessed, he was like a walking corpse that was caught by the guards and quickly escaped from Tang Zheng's line of sight. Xiao Bai chased after him first and stopped the emperor. Tang Zheng pointed in the direction of the emperor and said, Xiao Bai squeaked, turned into a white shadow, and swept past everyone's heads, chasing in the direction of the emperor. There were more and more enemies in front of him, and many more came in from outside the door. The War Soul sword in Tang Zheng's hand became more and more dazzling. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sword light spread out in all directions, and people kept falling under the War Soul sword. However, the other party kept charging forward, not knowing whether they were dead or alive. The people of the island nation had also gone crazy. They no longer cared about life and death. They were determined to stop Tang Zheng, or even kill him. "Sai, we can't go on like this. Shooting sun arrows, I'm counting on you." The shooting sun arrows were more powerful than the War Soul sword, and were more suitable for opening up roads. Thus, with a flash of light, the war soul sword disappeared, and was replaced by the heaven-shocking bow and shooting sun arrows. The bowstring trembled, and the shooting sun arrow left the bowstring. The powerful shockwave caused the enemies in front of him to be blown away like straw in the wind. Many of them had their chests pierced through and died on the spot. The remaining power of the shooting sun arrows had not dissipated, and had actually pierced through the Sky Emperor's chair. The dragon throne that was imitating the Yamata no Orochi immediately disintegrated, turning into dust. Taking advantage of the path that was swept out, Tangjung jumped up and followed the trajectory of the shooting sun arrows, quickly escaping from the palace. The others wanted to chase, but their speed could not be compared to Tangjung's. Kill. Tangjung's beard and hair flew wildly, like a god of death. Wherever he went, the enemies would all fall to the ground. However, there were not as many enemies as there were in the main hall, so they were unable to restrain his footsteps. After a while, he rushed out of the back door of the palace. In front of him was a long passageway with carved beams and painted rafters. The flowers on both sides were blooming, and the scenery was pleasant. However, at this moment, the scenery was stained with blood, turning into an azure field. Tangjung's heart was as stiff as iron, without the slightest bit of mercy or leniency. He was not such a bloodthirsty person, but the situation of Marshall had deeply stimulated him. Adding on the hatred he had for the island nation since he was young, he did not have the slightest bit of mercy. In front of him, there was a blaze, and Tangjung shivered. He understood that he had caught up to the target, so he increased his speed and soon arrived at the scene. The few people on the ground had already been burned to charcoal, and Xiaobai was fiercely attacking a person. This person was also dressed as a guard, but his strength was completely different, completely crushing the other guards. Great Master Martial Artist. Tangjung's pupils constricted, and with a glance he could see through the details of this person. This person was tall and strong, and was much taller and more powerful than the average island nation person. His muscles were strong and powerful, and his veins were bulging high, like small pythons winding around his body, bulging his clothes. This person is even more powerful than the great master martial artist beside the substitute, although he is relatively young. Tangjung muttered to himself, but his feet seemed to have gathered wind, and he arrived at the scene. The Sky Emperor fell to the ground, panting like a cow, sweating profusely, and looking at the two sides of the battle with a pale face. When he saw Tangjung rushing over, a look of despair immediately appeared in his eyes. He had misjudged the situation, and the enemy was even more daring than he had imagined. He actually dared to cause trouble in the Kokyo again. This time, he was not as lucky as last time. Without a substitute, the Sky Emperor was going to fight in person. The key was that Tangjung's killing intent was too strong, and he did not hide it at all. The Sky Emperor was not a fool. How could he not understand that Tangjung was really coming for him? If he did not kill him, he would definitely not give up. Of course, if he had the chance, he would not hesitate to kill Tangjung. In the battle with the Yamata no Orochi, Xiaobai had exhausted too much of his energy, and now his strength was greatly reduced. Moreover, the enemy was a great master martial artist, so Xiaobai did not have the upper hand, and could only temporarily delay the opponent's escape. "Xiaobai, let me do it!" Tangjung shouted, and he had already made the first move. The opponent had already known Tangjung's information. Seeing that he was going to fight personally, the great master martial artist also attacked without saying a word. This person's fist was powerful and heavy. Tangjung collided with it a few times, and he felt that the bones in his fingers were cracking, as if they were about to break. However, Tangjung did not cower. Instead, it was as if he had been provoked, and he fought with all his might, as if he was determined to determine the victor. Bang! Another punch. Both of their fists were bleeding, but the two of them were completely unaware of it. They clashed head-on, displaying the spirit of a man to the fullest. The blood vessels on the great master's arm seemed to come to life as they continuously swam around his body like a winding python. Pa-pa-pa. A series of crisp sounds came from the great master's body. His muscles twitched non-stop, rapidly expanding outwards. His clothes were torn apart, revealing large chunks of bronze-colored muscles. His body grew taller at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant he looked like a human-shaped giant bear, taller than Tang Zheng by a large margin. Tang Zheng had seen werewolves transform before, and it was even more exaggerated and terrifying than this person, so he was not afraid. Instead, he observed the slightest change with interest. After transforming into a monk, the other party's aura became even stronger. He was like a tiger with a tiger's might. With a glare, he spoke a lot of words in a fiendish manner. Tang Zheng could not understand, but he could guess that it was nothing more than ruthless words. Tang Zheng laughed coldly and revealed the War Soul sword in his hand. There must be many enemies rushing over from all directions, wanting to save the Sky Emperor. Therefore, he could not waste too much time and had to end the battle quickly. Kill! Tang Zheng roared, his body moved, but his sword had already flown out. Heaven Flying Immortal, combined with the Imperial Sword technique, this move was exceptionally cool. Roar! Grandmaster roared towards the sky, his entire body glowing with a faint luster. He also brandished his fist to welcome the War Soul sword. This person actually trains in martial arts. His body's resistance to attacks is incomparably strong, but I'm afraid it's not as profound as the chaotic Vajra spell. Let's see if he can withstand the attack of the War Soul sword. Tang Zheng said. The Grandmaster obviously did not place the War Soul sword in his eyes. Relying on his usual experience, he actually used his palms to block the War Soul sword. His palms were suffused with a metallic luster, as if they were plated with a layer of gold, giving off an invincible feeling. Puff! Blood splattered everywhere as the War Soul sword cut off the opponent's arm like cutting tofu. He immediately let out a muffled groan, but he actually managed to hold himself back from screaming. His veins were bulging, and he was filled with regret. He had misjudged the situation. However, this time, he was facing the War Soul sword, a heaven-grade magic treasure. Moreover, it had recently absorbed the sword chi in the sword forest, and had undergone a tremendous change. It was far from what ordinary swords and blades could compare to. One wrong step would lead to many more mistakes. He staggered backwards, dodging War Soul's attack trajectory. The corners of Tang Zheng's mouth curled into a cold smile as he said, "You want to escape just like that? Let me show you the essence of the Heavenly Flying Immortal's sword art." With a slight tap of his finger in the air, the trajectory of the War Soul sword immediately changed. It suddenly turned in midair and flew towards the Great Sage. Ah! The Great Sage could not help but let out a cry of surprise, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. But before he could do anything else, the War Soul sword turned into a dazzling ray of light and shot into his chest, immediately coming out from his back. With a heart-piercing chill, the War Soul sword brought along a stream of blood as it turned and flew back into Tang Zheng's hands. The Great Sage's eyes immediately lost their luster, turning into a pair of dead fish eyes. With a pung sound, his tall body fell to the ground with a loud bang, causing the ground to tremble violently. The Emperor could not help but tremble as his eyes stared straight at the corpse, his last pillar of support. Island Nation was only a small place, and the development of martial arts was not as long as Huaxia, so there were not many experts in the past few years, not to mention a national treasure like the Great Sage martial artist. Tang Zheng had come to the Imperial Palace twice and killed 2 Great Sage martial artists. The Emperor simply had no place to find an expert to protect him. Tang Zheng walked step by step in front of the Emperor. The Emperor hurriedly moved his butt and retreated in a panic, shouting, "Don't kill me, don't kill me. I'll give you whatever you want, money, riches, I promise you." With no other way out, he had to tempt them with benefits. The Emperor played this kind of trick, but this kind of trick was effective on many people, but to Tang Zheng, it was a different story. Tang Zheng's face was ashen like a block of ice. His killing intent did not diminish as he said, "There are many things in this world that cannot be exchanged with money and riches." The Emperor was slightly startled, hesitated for a moment, and asked, "What is that?" Chapter 700. Life. The Emperor was stunned like he had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. "Whose life do you want to save? I have the best medical resources in the world that can help you." Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. Since the Imperial tutor was the one who poisoned her, then did the Emperor have an antidote? Seeing Tang Zheng hesitate, The emperor knew that he had found the right antidote. He continued, "Life is important. Even if you kill me, you won't be able to bring her back to life, right? Why don't you think of a way to save her?" Tang Zheng's eyes turned cold. "Do you know about the goo poison?" "What is the goo poison?" The emperor blurted out. However, he realized something and immediately changed his words. "Goo poison, right? Of course I know about it. I have the antidote." Tang Zheng shook his head. His eyes turned cold. "You don't even know about the goo poison and you still want to lie to me." The emperor really did not know about the goo poison. However, he was not willing to give up on this chance. He impatiently said, "Although I don't know about the goo poison, I can send people to investigate. I will definitely find the antidote." Tang Zheng shook his head. Even if he found the imperial tutor and used the emperor's life to threaten him, the imperial tutor might not do anything. After all, the conflict between the two sides had escalated to an unprecedented level. It was a life-and-death situation. They wanted to see the other side die, so why would they save someone? Tang Zheng tossed these unrealistic thoughts to the back of his mind and looked at the emperor expressionlessly. The emperor realized that something was wrong. He used all his strength to lie in front of Tang Zheng and said, "I am the ruler of a country. I can fulfill any of your wishes as long as you ask." "It's too late. Back then when you invaded Huaxia, did you spare the lives of those who begged you? No. You created so many massacres, and now you refuse to admit it. You even changed the history books. You are the most despicable people in the world. You still want to live in this world? Impossible." Tang Zheng's answer was resolute and decisive, cutting off all hope for the emperor to survive. He raised his head once more and looked at Tang Zheng with disdain. "If you kill me, the island nation and Huaxia will fall into war. You will drag both countries into an irrecoverable situation. You will be the sinner of history." Tang Zheng laughed disapprovingly. "Haha, you really think too highly of yourself. You also think too highly of the island nation. Let me tell you, Huaxia is not the same as before. It is no longer the weak country of a few decades ago. Huaxia is strong and has long stood tall in the world. On the contrary, it is your island nation that has always been living in arrogance and wants to start another war. I will wait and see. When the time comes, I will let your country have a taste of Huaxia." The emperor's expression kept changing. Shame, anger unsightly and anger intertwined. He stared viciously at Tang Zheng and shouted hysterically, "There will be a day when the island nation's juniors will complete the unfinished business of the island nation's juniors. We will once again set foot on your land, burn, kill, and rob. We will make your Huaxia people be slaves for generations to come." The emperor had already fallen into madness and was shouting nonstop. There was no anger on Tang Zheng's face. He only felt that this person was too pitiful. He had lived in delusion for his entire life. Could such a thing happen? Absolutely impossible. When you go to hell, open your eyes wide and watch carefully. There will be a day when your island nation will suffer 100 times, 1,000 times the pain that was inflicted on Huaxia. Tang Zheng finished coldly. Shua. His hand rose and the sword fell. The emperor's head fell to the ground and rolled far away like a rubber ball. The screams of the island nation people were getting closer and closer. Tang Zheng nodded to Xiaobai and said, "Xiaobai, burn this place." Xiaobai nodded and jumped into the air. Flames spewed out from his small mouth and instantly covered all the palaces. The Kokyo was completely turned into a sea of fire. The reinforcements who rushed over were trapped in the sea of fire and fled madly. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai left the Kokyo, leaving behind the raging fire behind them. That night, the island nation was not peaceful. The world was shaken. Even if the island nation wanted to cover it up, there was no way. This was because the news had already spread on the internet. There were pictures, videos, and everything else. Among them, there was even a blurred image of Tang Zheng's back. He stood in the middle of the raging fire with a sword in one hand and a small child standing on his shoulder. He was peerless and independent. The world was shocked. Many people began to search for the identity of this assassin. Was it someone from the island nation or someone else? Most people did not know. Of course, the news of the emperor's death spread like the plague. The Kokyo and the emperor were completely finished by this assassin. The island nation people immediately hated this assassin to the bone. As for the people of other countries, their feelings were much more complicated. Every country announced that they had nothing to do with this matter. Moreover, they righteously condemned such an irresponsible and vile action. Huaxia was no exception. It was one of the countries with the harshest words. However, that picture had already been placed on the conference table of Huaxia's higher-ups. As long as one was familiar with Tang Zheng, it was not difficult to recognize him from this picture. Especially Xiao Bai's figure, it was too obvious. A man, a sword and an animal. This combination in this world was probably only Tang Zheng alone. When Su Yingtian held this picture, he almost fell to the ground in fright. His hands trembled, and he almost could not hold the picture steadily. His eyes stared straight at the back of that figure and said nervously, "This brat. Why can't he stop at all? Is he really going to start a third world war?" Before he could contact Tang Zheng, he was informed to attend a meeting. When he entered the meeting room and saw the people attending, his heart could not help but beat faster. These people were all big shots that could only be seen on TV. They were a group of people with the highest authority in Huaxia. A word from each of them would affect the country's development strategy and the livelihood of thousands of families. Of course, Su Yingtian knew these people. Due to his special position, he had interacted with these people before. However, seeing so many people sitting together, he suddenly had an ominous premonition. Something big must have happened. What big thing could happen in the middle of the night? Of course, it was the neighboring island nation. His eyes were very sharp and he immediately saw a picture on the conference table. Wasn't that a picture of Tang Zheng's back? The raging fire set off his tall and straight figure. He was awe-inspiring and had a natural power. He could even feel a murderous aura coming from the picture. Dong dong dong. Another series of footsteps sounded. Su Yingtian saw a person at a glance and his heart could not help but skip a beat. He was actually paying attention to this matter. This person had a square face, thick eyebrows, big eyes, a strong back and a strong waist. He had a majestic aura, and there was a strong sense of power between his brows. Su Yingtian's gaze went past this person and immediately landed on another person. In that instant, the ominous premonition in his heart grew stronger. Xing Feng, why is he beside him? The Dragon Group and the National Security Bureau had always been competing with each other. After experiencing several heavy blows from Tang Zheng, the Dragon Group had calmed down a lot. Due to the dissatisfaction of some of the higher-ups, the Dragon Group had also restrained themselves and even kept a low profile. But now that Su Yingtian saw the helmsman of the Dragon Group, Xing Feng, standing beside this person, the ominous feeling grew stronger. His gaze turned and immediately landed on the picture again. An idea came to his mind and cold sweat flowed down his head like a waterfall. This picture was submitted by the Dragon Group. The Dragon Group's intelligence system is really getting better and better. In the past, this kind of thing was done by the National Security Bureau. But this time, the Dragon Group had taken over the responsibility. The National Security Bureau would be in a passive situation and leave an impression of incompetence in the eyes of the higher-ups. In the future, the Dragon Group would definitely obtain more resources and develop faster. It would definitely not be a good thing for the National Security Bureau. Xing Feng also raised his head and looked over. When their eyes met, Xing Feng's eyes were filled with a smug smile. There was even a hint of ridicule. Su Yingtian snorted inwardly and became alert. He was afraid that tonight would not be easy. When the others saw this person, they all stood up. This person stretched his hand out and gestured for everyone to take a seat. Everyone waited for him to take a seat before they took their seats. Xing Feng, explain the situation. This person said in a deep voice. Xing Feng's expression turned cold as he said, "Tonight a shocking matter happened in our neighboring island nation. The emperor and the imperial palace were completely destroyed and turned into a pile of ashes. The mastermind behind all of this is the person in the picture." Everyone immediately looked at the picture before them. Someone narrowed his eyes and looked at it for a moment before he said, "It's just a back view. I can't tell who it is." Xing Feng seemed to have expected such an answer as he mysteriously smiled. Those who aren't familiar with him naturally won't be able to tell. But those who are familiar with him will be able to recognize him with a single glance. Everyone's interest was piqued as they asked in surprise. You're saying that you can already confirm the identity of this person? Xing Feng purposely kept them in suspense as he turned to look at Su Yingtian and said, Chief Su, you should be the one to answer this question, right? Su Yingtian was unhappy in his heart. He wished that he could shoot Xing Feng. Xing Feng was purposely digging a hole for him to jump in, but he had no choice but to jump in. If he did not speak the truth, the consequences would be even more severe. Thus, he seriously looked at the picture and said, We have also collected this information and are about to report it to the higher-ups. As for this person, we have already determined his identity. Oh, who is it? Everyone was curious as to who this fierce person was. Could it be someone from a terrorist organization? Tang Zheng. Su Yingtian took a deep breath and spat out 2 words. This name seems a little familiar. It also seems to be the name of our Huaxia people. Someone muttered. The smile in Xing Feng's eyes deepened as he said, Chief Su, since you have already determined the identity of the other party, then continue speaking. Su Yingtian knew that he could not avoid it, so he said truthfully, This person is from Huaxia. Wow. Immediately, many people were stunned. Even though they had experienced countless big battles and major events, they were still shocked by this news. A person from Huaxia burned the royal family of an island nation to ashes. That was not enough. He even killed the emperor. Chapter 701. The group of big shots looked at each other with mixed feelings. They were shocked beyond words by this news. Someone exclaimed as if he had just woken up from a dream. I finally remember that name, Tang Zheng. Isn't he the rising star? Xing Feng looked at Su Yingtian meaningfully and added with a smile. Not only that, he is also a special consultant of the National Security Bureau. This sentence immediately stirred up the nerves of the others, especially the few big shots, who immediately realized the awkwardness of Tang Zheng's clone. Tang Zheng had an official status, and he was also a consultant of the National Security Bureau. That would completely change the meaning of the matter. His personal actions would rise to official actions. This would cause friction between the 2 countries, and it would be seen as a very serious act of sabotage, or even an act of aggression. The big shots couldn't help but sit up straight, and their faces became unprecedentedly serious. They looked at Su Yingtian with unfriendly gazes. Director Su, what is your explanation? Su Yingtian felt bitter in his heart, and had to explain. Tang Zheng is indeed a consultant of the National Security Bureau, but this action is his personal action. Is that so? This is your one-sided statement. Do you think the island nation will believe it? Xing Feng asked with a fake smile. Everyone frowned at the same time, because the answer was self-evident. The island nation obviously wouldn't believe it. Su Yingtian, you are messing around. Gathering this kind of person to join the National Security Bureau. And he is even a consultant. Is this a consultant who is here to cause trouble? Someone couldn't help but slap the table and said angrily. Su Yingtian has helped us a lot. The emperor's brother fell into our hands because of him. In addition, he has made many contributions, and his performance is very outstanding. Su Yingtian earnestly said good things for Tang Zheng. So what if we have some achievements? The mess we made this time is much more serious than those trivial achievements. How do you think we should deal with the island nation if they hold us accountable? Xing Feng asked with an unkind expression. Su Yingtian glared fiercely at Xing Feng. Xing Feng's lips curled up into a sinister smile. Su Yingtian gnashed his teeth in hatred, but there was nothing he could do. He could only say, counter soldiers with arms, water with an earthweir. Today, why would the Huaxia fear an island nation? Haha, easy for you to say. Xing Feng smiled as he continued. Everyone listened to his irresponsible words. He's trying to drag the country into the fire pit. For such a person to still be in charge of the National Security Bureau, a national weapon, was a blasphemy to the country and an extremely irresponsible approach. One day, he will bring a bigger disaster and drag the country into a state of eternal damnation. Some people nodded their heads in agreement, while others looked hesitant. Su Yingtian's heart skipped a beat. He finally understood Xing Feng's intention. He wanted to use this incident to remove Su Yingtian from his position as the director of the National Security Agency. This way, he would be able to get rid of a big problem. Su Yingtian's expression turned cold. How could he give in so easily? He retorted, "I'm a soldier of the country. Why would I do such a foolish thing? Xing Feng, don't judge others by your own standards." Xing Feng did not back down and said, "This matter concerns the security of the country, so it's not a small matter. It doesn't matter if I judge others by my own standards. What's important is that your people have made a huge mess and put the country into a passive and unfavorable situation. As the chief of the National Security Bureau, you should take responsibility for it." Many people looked at Su Yingtian with burning eyes. It was self-evident that they had already chosen to believe Xing Feng. Cough. Suddenly, the person sitting at the top coughed. Everyone immediately fell silent and looked at him. That person looked deeply at Su Yingtian and said, "The most important thing now is to find a solution. When the island nation recovers, they will definitely hold you accountable." Everyone looked at Su Yingtian. This was a hot potato. If it wasn't handled well, it would hurt the country's dignity. But if it was handled well, it wouldn't be a good thing to announce. Xing Feng looked at Su Yingtian with a fake smile. Su Yingtian was helpless and could only accept this hot potato. He raised his neck and volunteered, "I'm willing to reduce the impact of this matter to the lowest." "Good, you have guts. As the chief of the National Security Bureau, you must have such guts. Otherwise, how can you protect the safety of the country and its citizens?" That person praised. Su Yingtian sighed in relief. Since that person had said those words, it meant that there was still a way to remedy this matter. So he wouldn't be stripped of his position right now. Disappointment flashed in Xing Feng's eyes. However, he wasn't discouraged. Su Yingtian was deeply rooted in the country, and it wasn't something that could be taken down in a short period of time. Everything had to be done step by step. There was bound to be a straw that broke the camel's back, and he just had to wait and see. Furthermore, the moment Tang Zheng returns to the country, immediately take him under control. That person's expression changed as he coldly gave out an order. Su Yingtian's heart skipped a beat. He immediately explained, "Tang Zheng is a rare talent, and he definitely doesn't have any bad intentions." Just when he wanted to continue, the other party had already waved his hand and stood up. The others also stood up and sent him off with their gazes before leaving the conference room one after another. Xing Feng did not leave. Instead, he looked at Su Yingtian across the conference table. The smile on Xing Feng's face gradually blossomed as he proudly said, "You've always treated Tang Zheng as a treasure, and you've always protected him. Now you know how to regret it, right? He's a troublemaker, a ticking time bomb. I advise you to obediently hand him over to me, and I might even put in a good word for you for the sake of our relationship." Su Yingtian remained unmoved as he coldly looked at the other party and retorted, "You want to see me make a fool of myself, right? You want to remove me from my position so that your dragon group can slowly nibble away at the National Security Bureau? Xing Feng, let me tell you, no way." Xing Feng wasn't afraid as he blinked his eyes and confidently said, "Then let's wait and see. That's right, you'll only have a chance to continue playing with me if you pass this hurdle. Otherwise, you'll be completely out of the game." Su Yingtian coldly snorted and left without saying a word. After returning to the National Security Bureau, he sat down on a chair and fell into deep thought. After a long time, his eyes turned cold as he sat up straight and dialed a number. "Hello, Tang Zheng." Su Yingtian went straight to the point. "You've caused me a big mess again. What's the situation over there?" Tang Zheng was on his way back to his residence when his satellite phone rang. He heard this question as soon as he picked it up. "The Imperial Palace is destroyed, the Emperor is dead, and the Imperial Tutor's fate is unknown. The Imperial Tutor's residence is also almost destroyed," Tang Zheng said indifferently. After the massacre, his anger had mostly dissipated, and his voice became calm again. "Imperial Tutor, the Imperial Tutor's residence?" Su Yingtian was slightly stunned. The Imperial Tutor's residence was too mysterious, and the information sent back didn't mention the situation of the Imperial Tutor's residence. Yes, many things have happened in the Imperial Tutor's residence, and many new discoveries have been made. As for what will happen in the end, it's not clear for the time being. Tang Zheng said truthfully. What happened? Su Yingtian asked curiously. It's hard to explain in a few words. I'll talk to you in detail when we go back. Tang Zheng didn't intend to hide the matter of Orochi. It was related to Huaxia's past and the future. It was even related to the 100 Faces Star Lord. It was wise to let the authorities know about this matter. Su Yingtian really wanted to ask about this matter, but in the end he held back and changed the topic. You've done such a big thing, which will definitely cause the island nation to be on full alert. You should take advantage of the fact that the other side hasn't completed a comprehensive layout, and leave this place. Otherwise you'll really be unable to escape. Tang Zheng didn't think so. He had Gui Qiansui, so it was easy for him to leave this island nation. No one could stop him. Thank you. I'll look for you when I go back in a few days. That's all for now. Tang Zheng had already seen the small building and quickly hung up the phone. Only Su Yingtian was left holding the phone. Finally, he could only sigh helplessly. Tang Zheng looked up and saw that there was no one on the balcony. His heart thumped. You must wait for me, you must. Then he rushed into the small building like the wind and asked loudly, Where is Marshall? The bedroom on the second floor. Whiz. He came to the bedroom door. The door was ajar, and Marshall was lying on the bed. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Lan Yu was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at Marshall with red eyes. How is he? Tang Zheng couldn't wait to ask. Lan Yu turned his head and said, You're finally back. She's still waiting for you. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. He quickly walked to the bedside and held Marshall's hand. He found that her eyes were still closed, and she was on the verge of death. Marshall, I'm back. I've already avenged you. The Emperor is dead and the Imperial Palace has already turned to ashes. Tang Zheng said gently. Lan Yu was slightly startled. He never thought that Tang Zheng would go out and do such a shocking thing. He patted his shoulder and said with relief, If Marshall knows about your intentions, he will definitely be very touched. Tang Zheng squeezed out a bitter smile from the corner of his mouth. Stay with her for a while. I'll go out first. Lan Yu gave the time to the two of them. He gently closed the door and walked out. Tang Zheng took the opportunity to sit at the head of the bed and held her in his arms. Her body was still soft and supple. Looking at her face in a daze, Tang Zheng couldn't help but feel sorrowful. He had the urge to cry out loud. Marshall, if the heavens give me another chance, I will definitely protect you well and accompany you forever. I will definitely not be impatient with you again. Tang Zheng muttered to himself. Suddenly, his eyes turned cold as he stared at her throat. His eyes revealed a strange light. Her throat started to move, as if something was crawling up her throat. It was very obvious. What's going on? He was shocked and immediately activated his innate chi into Marshall's body. In that instant, he knew everything about her body like the back of his hand. Chapter 702. This was truly inconceivable. Marshall's heart was beating even more vigorously, and the most important thing was that the goo worm that was wrapped around her heart had disappeared. Of course, the goo worm could not disappear into thin air. Instead, it had moved to the throat. Tang Zheng saw Marshall's movements, which meant that the goo worm was crawling along her throat towards her mouth. What was going on? Didn't the Imperial Tutor say that the goo worm would devour Marshall's heart? But now the situation was clearly different. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's expression turned cold as he discovered something strange in Marshall's mouth. The goo worm's tentacles had reached out from her throat and were greedily sucking the blood in her mouth. This blood was clearly not Marshall's blood, but had extended from her lips. Tang Zheng was slightly startled and immediately came to a realization. He exclaimed in shock, I know this is my blood. Previously, he had kissed Marshall once. At that time, he had bitten his lips and blood had seeped into Marshall's mouth. However, he did not expect that the blood would have such a strong attraction to the goo worm. It had actually lured it out of Marshall's heart. This was like seeing a trace of light in the darkness. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. Without saying a word, he bit his finger and opened Marshall's mouth. He dripped his blood into her mouth. Immediately, the goo worm seemed to have gone crazy. Its tentacles quickly rushed over. Not just one, but several of them reached into Marshall's chest and greedily sucked the blood. Tang Jung finally understood the whole story. He had the 9 Saint body, and his blood was different from ordinary people. The goo worm especially liked his blood, so it was lured to his throat. Come out, come out. Tang Jung seemed to be chanting a spell, hoping to lure the goo worm out of his throat. However, things did not go as he wished. The goo worm only stretched out its tentacles, but did not crawl out of the throat. It seemed that it knew that it would be dangerous if it crawled out of the throat. Damn it, this little bug is actually so cunning. Tang Jung was greatly disappointed. He watched as the tentacles sucked his blood, but the goo worm did not come out. Tang Jung tried to stretch his finger to his throat. The blood stimulated the goo worm to become even more frenzied. All of its tentacles stretched out and wrapped around Tang Jung's finger, sucking the blood without restraint. Hiss. Tang Jung felt a sharp pain, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. He controlled his fingers to slowly move backwards, trying to pull out the goo worm. Well, suddenly, a painful murmur caused Tang Jung's entire body to be startled, only to see Marshall's originally calm face reveal a painful expression. What happened? Tang Jung was shocked. He quickly ran his real chi to investigate. F***CK. Tang Jung could not help but curse. Why did the goo worm grow so many thorns and forcefully grab Marshall's throat? The goo worm grew several thorns and grabbed Marshall's throat, resisting Tang Jung's pulling force. This goo worm has really gained intelligence. Tang Jung turned pale with fright. If he could not get it out of his throat, then everything would be meaningless. He could not just let it continue to suck blood, right? Then wouldn't Tang Jung die from all of his blood being sucked dry? He had to think of another way. Tang Jung quickly freed his finger from the tentacles. He frowned and seemed to be deep in thought. The goo worm discovered that the delicious taste had disappeared and started to squirm. Marshall's body immediately twitched again. His muscles twisted and his face revealed a painful expression. No, this goo worm has gone crazy. Tang Jung was helpless. He could only immediately put his hand into Marshall's mouth. All of the tentacles immediately wrapped around his hand. Wu stopped twitching and regained his composure, but Tang Jung had a bitter expression on his face. Ouch! Tang Jung screamed. He felt the tentacles reach into his skin and muscles. The intense pain caused Tang Jung to involuntarily frown. He quickly focused his mind to check the situation. He could not help but cry out in alarm, only to see that the goo worm had disappeared, completely disappearing from Marshall's body. Damn it, where did it go this time? Tang Jung stomped his foot. This thing would not disappear into thin air for no reason. It must have gone somewhere else. Before he could figure it out, he saw the blood vessels on his arm bulge up high. Then, with lightning speed, the bulge moved to his shoulder and went straight for his heart. What happened? Tang Jung was shocked and quickly checked his body. He didn't know if he didn't see it, but when he saw it, he was really shocked. The goo worm actually shrunk and drilled into his blood vessels. Then it started to swim towards his heart. No, I can't let it come to my heart. Wouldn't I be controlled by it? Tang Jung's face turned pale with fright as he subconsciously thought. He quickly circulated his true chi, wanting to intercept the goo worm halfway. However, the goo worm's reaction was faster than his. It had already arrived at his heart. All of its tentacles expanded and instantly wrapped around his heart. Tang Jung felt his heart tighten. There was a sense of suffocation. Moreover, there was a sharp pain in his chest. Tang Jung sucked in a breath of cold air. His mind was shaken, and his eyes could not help but reveal a trace of despair. This damned goo worm preferred his blood, so it did not hesitate to give up on Marshall, and drilled into his body in an attempt to completely devour his heart and blood. Don't even think about succeeding. Tang Jung gritted his teeth and shouted. His true chi immediately wrapped around the goo worm. The goo worm knew that its nemesis had arrived, so it hurriedly wrapped itself around Tang Jung's heart. Tang Jung felt that his breathing was becoming difficult as he clutched his chest and staggered backwards, only stopping when he hit the wall with a pung. Tang Jung felt that his blood was rapidly flowing out. Even his life was rapidly leaving his body. In short, the signs of death had arrived. He stared deeply at the unconscious Marshall and said with relief, "Marshall, it's good that you're alive." His consciousness gradually became blurry. He felt as if he was about to float into the clouds and fall into a bottomless valley. In short, this feeling was very mysterious, but it was not good at all. Bang bang. Bang bang. Tang Zheng's heart started to beat rapidly. His speed did not slow down at all. Tang Zheng suddenly opened his eyes. It was as if a soul-stirring light flashed through his eyes. "I'm awake again." Tang Zheng's voice changed. It was heavy and dignified, causing one's heart to tremble in fear. This brat is really too weak. A small goo worm actually almost caused him to lose his life. Qi Yu's heart had awakened. This voice was Qi Yu's voice, filled with killing intent. Back then, in the crater in the northeast, it was because of the awakening of Qi Yu's heart that Tang Zheng was able to successfully absorb the dragon's soul and defeat the Heavenly Emperor's brother. This time, Qi Yu's heart was attacked by the goo worm. Qi Yu's consciousness had finally recovered. When he saw Tang Zheng's terrible situation, he could not help but complain. Just a small goo worm. Then use it as my nourishment." Qi Yu's heart said casually. As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Yu's heart emitted a bloody mist, which instantly enveloped the goo worm. As if the goo worm had seen its nemesis, it started to twist crazily, trying to break free from the restraints of Qi Yu's heart. "Hey, you want to escape from such a small matter? Dream on." Qi Yu's heart said in disdain. Before he finished speaking, the goo worm started to struggle. It kept twisting and waving its tentacles. Bang! Suddenly, the goo worm exploded, turning into a cloud of mist that enveloped Qi Yu's heart. After a while, the mist completely seeped into Qi Yu's heart. Everything returned to normal. This kid's character is not bad. He is decisive in killing and has a firm heart. With some nurturing, he will be a promising talent. It's just that his cultivation is too weak. It's simply a disgrace to the reputation of the Nine-Yang Saint body. How can a person with the Nine-Yang Saint body only have such a little cultivation? Yamada no Orochi has come out. Even the 100 Transformations Star Lord has come. This world is becoming more and more interesting. I really look forward to recovering my strength and rebuilding my glory. Qi Yu's heart sighed. "Tang Zheng, what's wrong?" Lan Yu's voice came from outside the door. She had heard the commotion in the room, so she had rushed over. Qi Yu's heart stopped talking. The moment Lan Yu opened the door, everything returned to normal. Tang Zheng's eyes also opened at this moment. "Nothing." Tang Zheng replied. Lan Yu heaved a sigh of relief and said, "I heard your cries of pain and thought something had happened. How is Marshall?" Tang Zheng's gaze turned and landed on Marshall. He saw that her expression was calm, like a sleeping baby. "She's fine." Lan Yu was startled and almost burst into tears. She wiped the corner of her eyes and walked over with large strides, saying, "Her face is much rosier. Tang Zheng, why is your face so pale?" Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat as he stammered, "I." Before he could finish his sentence, he was dumbstruck as he looked at his heart in disbelief. Where's the goo worm? The goo worm had disappeared, leaving behind a strong heart that was beating rhythmically. There was nothing else going on in his body. What's going on? Why did the goo worm disappear? Even though Tang Zheng was resourceful, he could not guess what was going on. Lan Yu frowned and asked suspiciously, "Goo worm? What happened to the goo worm?" Tang Zheng immediately pulled open the clothes on his chest. His skin was smooth and there was nothing wrong with it. Lan Yu finally saw through the clues and asked anxiously, "Tang Zheng, don't lie to me. What happened to the ground?" Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. Joy appeared on his face as he said, "Marshall is fine. The goo worm in her body has completely disappeared." "Ah." Lan Yu was shocked and cried out in alarm. "How could this be? How did you do it?" Tang Zheng guessed that the goo worm must have disappeared in his body. As for how it disappeared, he did not know. However, he still told her about how the goo worm absorbed his blood and then accidentally drilled into his body. Lan Yu's heart trembled when she heard this, her eyelids twitched, and her expression was filled with pain. She could not help but hold on to Tang Zheng's hand and said emotionally, "Tang Zheng, you silly child. You almost harmed yourself, do you know that?" Tang Zheng felt the other party's heartfelt concern and said, "Am I not fine?" Chapter 703. As soon as Lan Yu finished speaking, Marshall let out a murmur and faintly woke up. Tang Zheng and Lan Yu were overjoyed. They immediately surrounded him and asked with concern, "Marshall, how do you feel?" Marshall opened his eyes with difficulty, looked at Tang Zheng, and then at Lan Yu. He was wild with joy. "Mistress, I see you again." Lan Yu stroked Marshall's hair, his nose sour, and said emotionally, "Silly child, for us to travel thousands of miles to Island Nation, you almost lost your life. Marshall is useless. I was unable to save Master, Mistress, and all my fellow sect members." Marshall said in shame, his eyes wet. Lan Yu's face turned serious as he said, "Who dares to say that you're useless? I'll beat him up until his mother doesn't even recognize him." Marshall broke into a smile and said, "Where are Master and the others?" Lan Yu's expression stiffened as he comforted her. "Don't worry, the others are all outside. As for your master, he still has some matters to attend to. You just escaped danger, so you need to rest well." Marshall revealed a puzzled expression and said, "I only remember what happened before I fainted. Who saved me?" Lan Yu smiled as he looked at Tang Zheng. Marshall's gaze turned as he asked, "You saved me?" "Of course, out of all of us, only he has the ability to do so. He almost lost his life because of it," Lan Yu said. Marshall's eyes revealed a moved expression, and a blush flashed across his face. He looked at Tang Zheng in a daze and said, "Thank you." Tang Zheng's face also blossomed with a brilliant smile. He subconsciously held her hand and said, "This is what I should do. You young people take your time to chat. I'll be leaving first." Lan Yu smiled meaningfully, and even winked mysteriously at Marshall before closing the door and leaving. There were only 2 people left in the room, and they immediately fell into silence. The 2 of them looked at each other. Then Marshall hurriedly looked away. She had a clear feeling that the world after waking up was completely different from before, especially Tang Zheng's gaze, which was even softer and filled with deep affection. This was something that had never happened before, causing her heart to palpitate and her heart to race. Tang Zheng coughed and broke the silence. "Are you tired? Do you want to rest for a while?" "Not tired," Marshall blurted out, looked at him and said, "In order to save me, you almost sacrificed yourself?" "It's not that exaggerated," Tang Zheng said lightly. But the more he said this, the more certain Wu was that this was the case. He couldn't help but hold his hand. Tang Zheng's heart warmed, and he also held her hand tightly. Their eyes met, and this time they did not avoid each other's gaze. The 2 pairs of eyes that were close to each other silently communicated, transmitting each other's feelings. The atmosphere was changing bit by bit, and a mysterious feeling was brewing in the air. Tang Zheng bent down and gently kissed her lips. Wu did not resist, but instead closed his eyes and quietly felt it, as if his heart was about to melt. The things that the 2 of them had done in the past were also unable to resist the magic of this kiss. It was so beautiful that it made one's heart bloom with joy. Every pore on one's body seemed to open, giving one a kind of limitless power. Their lips parted. Tang Zheng looked at Wu, who was so close to him that he could almost see the fine hair on her face, and feel her breathing. Wu had her eyes closed the entire time. She knew that Tang Zheng was staring at her, so she was too embarrassed to open her eyes. She didn't know when she had become so shy. She sensed her own thoughts, and the blush on her face became even redder. She was like a ripe apple, tender and alluring. "Rest well." Tang Zheng did not push his luck and said gently, "I'll be outside. If there's anything, call me." Wu Weiwei opened her eyes and narrowed them into slits. She nodded her head and watched Tang Zheng leave. Then she let out a long breath. The sweet feeling lingered in her heart for a long time. Unknowingly, she fell asleep with a smile on her face. Outside the house, Lan Yu looked at Tang Zheng with a smile and said, "Why don't you accompany me for a while longer? She's a little tired. I'll let her rest first. There'll be plenty of time in the future," Tang Zheng said. "Marshall is a good girl. She will remember your kindness." Tang Zheng felt ashamed of his inferiority. Most of the time, it was Wu who treated her better, while he felt that Wu was dispensable. He could summon her, and leave her at any time. "Is he back?" Tang Zheng changed the topic. Lan Yu looked out the window at the night sky, shook his head and said, We left clues for him along the way. He will follow the clues to find us. It's been so long, but he still hasn't found us. Will something happen to him? Tang Jing couldn't help but worry. If he knew that you were so worried about him, he would definitely be very gratified. Lan Yu sighed. A hint of panic flashed past Tang Jing's eyes. His feelings for his biological parents were already in a mess, and even he himself couldn't explain it clearly. Hearing Lan Yu's words, he felt a sense of panic. He quickly shifted his gaze and said, "Do you need us to go find him?" "No need. He will have a way. You have to trust him." Lan Yu's gaze was firm. Tang Jing was at his wit's end, and could only choose to believe in her judgment. At this moment, Wu Junshan was still in the Imperial Advisor's mansion, which was already surrounded by layers upon layers of troops. Although the Heavenly Emperor had died, and the country had indeed fallen into chaos, they had still set up a certain emergency mechanism. After the emergency mechanism was activated, the various government orders were passed down in an orderly manner. First, a large number of troops surrounded the Imperial Palace and the Imperial Advisor's mansion, not allowing anyone to enter or leave. The army did not completely enter the Imperial Advisor's mansion. The Imperial Advisor's mansion occupied an extremely large area, and that small village was only a drop in the ocean. The larger area was the mountain and lake behind the village, and the mountain was even connected to the sea. Wu Junshan stood at the peak of the mountain. Half of the mountain had already been destroyed, and it was a complete mess. This was the result of the battle between Yamada no Orochi and the Hundred Faces Star-Lord. It was terrifying, and it was almost impossible for an ordinary person to reach such a level. Wu Junshan's expression was cold, and his clothes were a little messy. There was still a trace of shock in his eyes. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have imagined such a battle. Although he was an expert, he was still not strong enough to face these two tyrannical fellows. "Master, let's go." In the darkness, an ethereal voice sounded. Wu Junshan was unmoved. He looked in the direction of the sea and said, "What do you think the final result of their battle will be?" Yamada no Orochi is still no match for the Hundred Faces Star-Lord. Defeat is only a matter of time. So the Hundred Faces Star-Lord will have the help of Yamada no Orochi. Wu Junshan frowned. This is something that can't be stopped. Shadow, the days ahead will only get more and more difficult. Wu Junshan sighed. If you hadn't stopped me, I'm afraid I would have disappeared from this world. Shadow, a martial scholar, was really like a shadow, following beside Wu Junshan. It was all thanks to the shadow that they were able to leave the martial organization so smoothly. This time, the shadow had helped Wu Junshan again. Wu Junshan could not remember how many times the shadow had helped him. It was as if the shadow had become a part of his body. "Master, this is what I should do," the shadow calmly said. "Let's go. We'll catch up with Lan Yu and leave this place. I have a feeling that the good days of the island nation are coming to an end," Wu Junshan said meaningfully. The two disappeared. In the ruins, a few stones moved, and a person came out, the Imperial Teacher. The Imperial Teacher was covered in dust and looked in a sorry state. He looked in the direction where Wu Junshan disappeared, and then looked in the direction of the sea. He muttered to himself, "There is always someone better than you." Huaxia's famous saying is too accurate. Without a doubt, the Imperial Teacher used to be headstrong and arrogant. Although he did not think that he was the best in the world, he was very confident that he was one of the strongest people in the world. But after seeing this unprecedented battle, he realized that he was the frog at the bottom of the well. He only saw the blue sky above his head. Wu Junshan, the shadow beside him, and even his wife are all top-notch experts. Compared to them, even I am slightly inferior, not to mention that childlike multiform Star-Lord. Who is he? How can he have such terrifying strength? There was still a lingering fear between his brows. In front of Hundred Change Star-Lord, he had no resistance at all. He was like an ant that could be easily squashed to death. How is the battle between God Orochi and Hundred Change Star-Lord? He looked at the sea, but could not see anything clearly. Kacha. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky and landed in the sea. Thick black clouds accumulated on the surface of the sea. Then, the rumbling of thunder sounded like a drum, deafening to the ears. This is their battle. The imperial teacher was frightened. Imperial preceptor. Suddenly, a figure appeared behind the imperial preceptor and knelt down with a thud. The imperial teacher turned around and saw his favorite disciple. He was pleasantly surprised. Junko, are you okay? Junko's face was as pale as paper. Her shoulders trembled as if she was terrified. She said in a trembling voice, Junko was lucky to escape. The others are dead. They died in the hands of that child. When Junko recalled that scene, her heart felt like it was going to jump out of her throat. She had never seen such a powerful person in her entire life. He didn't even need to touch them, and the others were killed without being able to resist. It was not a simple killing but a massacre. The strong murderous aura emitted by the child's every movement made people unable to think of resisting. She had to overcome the fear in her heart with great difficulty to escape this calamity. The imperial teacher's expression did not change at all. He said lightly, I know sacrifice is inevitable. Imperial teacher, we have to avenge them. Junko's eyes bloomed with flames of hatred as she said resolutely. The imperial teacher showed a self-mocking smile and said, Oh, revenge? He paused for a moment and said, There is nothing I can do. Junko had never seen the imperial teacher so dispirited. After she escaped, she did not see the great battle just now, so she did not understand the situation in front of her. It's over. Everything is settled. The imperial teacher said dispiritedly. As if to prove this sentence, the thunder and lightning on the sea stopped. Chapter 704. This aura made people have an impulse to kowtow. Junko looked at it with a pale face and asked, State Preceptor, what is that? The imperial advisor was silent, but his face became serious. Boom. Rivers and seas were overturned, and huge waves surged up on the surface of the sea. Junko subconsciously took a step back and exclaimed, Tsunami! State Preceptor was still motionless as he stared at the monstrous waves. Although Junko had the urge to run away, she stopped abruptly when she saw State Preceptor's tall and straight figure. The huge wave stopped in front of the mountain. The seawater was like a waterfall. With a splash, it fell into the sea, splashing water vapor all over the sky. It was like a rainstorm. A huge monster quietly revealed its true face. It was none other than Yamada no Orochi. However, the 8 heads of Yamada no Orochi were protected by a person standing at the top, 100 faces. Although he was still dressed like a child, he looked down from above like a king looking down on the world. Obviously, as the imperial advisor expected, Yamada no Orochi had been subdued by 100 faces. Yamada no Orochi lowered its noble head. This was a world where the strong were respected, especially the creatures who came from the cultivation world. They understood the principle of the strong being respected, and had a deeper understanding of the law of the jungle. If they didn't submit, they would die. Yamada no Orochi obviously didn't want to die, so it could only submit. The imperial advisor's face changed a few times, and the loss and pain in his eyes were self-evident. Although he had expected this result, he still had mixed feelings when he saw it with his own eyes. All these years, Yamada no Orochi had been respected by him as a god. In the long history, both the imperial advisor and the emperor respected Yamada no Orochi as a god, so it was called Yamada no Orochi. Deities were lofty and undefeatable. However, at this moment, it was proven that Yamada no Orochi was still a long way from being a god. It was because the imperial advisor and the emperor were frogs at the bottom of the well that they worshipped Yamada no Orochi as a god. This was equivalent to 100 faces slapping the imperial advisor in the face. He couldn't resist and could only raise his head to take it. Oh, this old man is quite interesting. He is a grandmaster warrior. 100 faces said with interest. It was the first time he saw the imperial advisor. Yamada no Orochi said, Master, this is the imperial advisor of the island nation. He is second only to one person. Haha, is that so? Is he really that powerful? The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign curled his lips into a brilliant smile. But this bright smile made Orochi's heart tremble. He hurriedly said, That's just the nonsense of ordinary people. He is also your servant, master. He is under your command. It seems that a grandmaster martial artist can also be a servant and do some miscellaneous chores. 100 Faces Star-Lord accepted Orochi's good intentions and said. Junko had already seen the appearance of the 100 Change Star-Lord. Wasn't this the murderer who had killed countless of her fellow disciples? And what was that monster? Although Junko was a disciple of the Imperial Advisor, the existence of Yamada no Orochi was only known by the Imperial Advisor. Even if she was the Imperial Advisor's confidant, she definitely didn't know about Yamada no Orochi. Of course, she didn't understand the meaning of Yamada no Orochi. She was furious when she heard that the Imperial Advisor was reduced to a servant. The Imperial Advisor was the person she respected the most. How could he be insulted like this? She took a deep breath and stood up without a care for her own safety. She scolded. Shut up, I won't allow you to insult the state preceptor. Silence. Dead silence. All eyes were focused on Junko. She felt as if a huge boulder was pressing down on her, and there was a suffocating feeling. But she gritted her teeth and held on like a strong little warrior. The Imperial Advisor's face was pale. He didn't expect Junko to be so bold. If he angered her, his life would be in danger. Junko, shut up. The Imperial Advisor scolded and then respectfully said to Yamada no Orochi. Yamada no Orochi, she is young and ignorant. Please don't lower yourself to her level. Yamada no Orochi's huge eyes seemed to have magic as he stared at Junko. Junko stubbornly raised her neck and looked at Yamada no Orochi face to face. Those huge eyes seemed to want to swallow her soul, causing her to feel fear and tremble from the bottom of her heart. How dare you be disrespectful to my master and me? It's a capital offense. Yamada no Orochi suddenly said. The Imperial Advisor's body trembled. He wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't say anything. He just looked at Junko with pity. The Imperial Advisor had made his decision. Since he couldn't go against it, he could only listen to the arrangement of fate and submit to the Zodiac Star Lord. Although he was extremely unwilling to do so, he had to do it in order to survive. He secretly comforted himself that perhaps it would be easier for him to achieve his previous goal after following the Zodiac Star Lord. He wanted to plead for Junko, but after seeing Yamada no Orochi's attitude, he decided to give up. He didn't want to take the risk. Junko was his disciple, but she was more important than his own life. Junko looked at the Imperial Advisor in disappointment. It wasn't because he didn't want to plead for her, but because of his cowardice. He actually submitted to the Zodiac Star Lord. Where did his usual pride go? Why was he so afraid of death? The high image of the Imperial Advisor in her heart instantly collapsed. She raised her head in despair, but she didn't lose her pride. She looked at the others with contempt and said, "Come on, kill me. Anyway, you have already killed the other disciples of the Imperial Advisor's residence. It doesn't matter if you kill one more." Haha, interesting, interesting. Suddenly, a crisp applause broke the silence. The Zodiac Star Lord clapped his little hands with a mysterious smile on his face. It's interesting to have such a person as a servant. There are too many spineless people like that. It's not rare. The rarer something is, the more valuable it is. This little girl is the rarest talent. The Zodiac Star Lord didn't hesitate to praise. Little snake, I'll give that guy to you. After eating a master warrior, your cultivation will recover a little. The Zodiac Star Lord said. Hearing this, the state preceptor's expression changed drastically. He exclaimed in disbelief, "Don't kill me, I will obediently be your servant. I will never be disloyal." The Zodiac Star Lord didn't even look at him. All his attention was focused on Junko. He said, "Didn't I already tell you? There are spineless people everywhere. What use do I have for you?" After a pause, 3 words came out from the Zodiac Star Lord's mouth. "Eat him." The Imperial Advisor was desperate. He kept compromising, but it turned out to be the worst way. The Zodiac Star Lord didn't buy it. Instead, Junko was appreciated by the Zodiac Star Lord. This was really God's will. The Imperial Advisor wasn't a person who accepted his fate. When he heard the 3 words from the Zodiac Star Lord, his body flashed and turned into a stream of light, rushing out of the Imperial Advisor's residence. The Zodiac Star Lord still didn't hesitate to look at him. It was as if the Imperial Advisor's life and death didn't matter to him. Or, he knew that the Imperial Advisor couldn't escape. The huge tail of the Yamata no Orochi arrived first. The sound of the tail breaking through the air was loud, as if it was going to tear the air apart. Bang! With a muffled sound, the Imperial Advisor was swept across the waist and flew into the air. He let out a heart-wrenching scream as blood danced in the wind. Junko's heart was fiercely clenched. She wanted to help, but it was already too late. She could only watch as the Imperial Advisor flew in the air like a willow catkin. The huge tail was like a whip, dancing in the air and wrapped around the Imperial Advisor. The Imperial Advisor was suffocating, but he couldn't bear the pain. He roared and slapped the scales with both hands. Using all his strength, the strength of this slap could be said to be terrifying. With a loud bang, a piece of the scales was slapped off, bringing with it a dazzling stream of blood. Roar! How dare you! I'm going to eat you! Yamata no Orochi finally exploded in anger. Although it had pledged allegiance to the Zodiac Star Lord, it had always been high and mighty in front of the Imperial Advisor. Even now, it still maintained this condescending position. But the Imperial Advisor dared to attack it, and even injured it. This was absolutely intolerable. The huge tail swung back, and the Imperial Advisor flew in the air. Before he could break free, a bloody mouth came towards him. A disgusting smell assaulted his face, almost suffocating the Imperial Advisor. His eyes were immediately filled with despair as he looked at the bloody mouth and long fangs that were getting closer and closer. Ah! The Imperial Advisor let out a heart-wrenching scream of unwillingness, and then he fell into the mouth of Yamata no Orochi. The scream came to an abrupt end. The Imperial Advisor was bitten in half, and the sound of bones breaking was particularly clear in the dark night. It was also particularly ear-piercing, making people involuntarily shudder. Junko trembled and almost fainted. Watching her idol fall into the mouth of the monster, this visual impact almost made her collapse. If it wasn't for her extraordinary perseverance, she would have been scared out of her wits, but her body was already trembling uncontrollably. Kacha! Kacha! The crisp sound of bones breaking was incessant, and blood overflowed from the corner of Yamata no Orochi's bloody mouth. That was the Imperial Advisor's blood. After Yamata no Orochi swallowed, the Imperial Advisor completely disappeared from its mouth and entered its stomach, completing the journey of his life. Suddenly, Yamata no Orochi's eyes lit up instantly, like a searchlight in the dark night, emitting a breathtaking light. Turning its gaze, it swept towards Junko, and Junko subconsciously stepped back. "Don't be afraid, I won't kill you," 100 Faces Star-Lord said patiently, like a strange uncle tricking a little girl. "Become my servant, and your life in the future will be 1,000 times, 10,000 times more interesting than now." Before his voice fell, he was already in front of Junko, but he didn't move. Instead, it was the head of Yamata no Orochi that carried him to Junko. He slowly stretched out a finger and pointed at Junko's forehead. Junko wanted to dodge, but found that she couldn't move at all. She was firmly locked by the other party's aura. Chapter 705. The finger of the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign blossomed with a dazzling light. And this was the only light left in Junko's eyes. There was an explosion in her mind, and countless information flooded in, filling up every single one of her brain cells and nerves. Her pupils instantly enlarged. As a ninja, she could be regarded as a beginner in magic. Seeing this information, she was overjoyed and almost went crazy. She understood the value of these things too well. Didn't the state preceptor rack his brains to capture Tangjung for these things? Magic. The real Huaxia magic, not the superficial ninjutsu. She felt that every word in her mind was so beautiful, exuding a charm that made her enchanted. Rumble. A burst of sound like the yellow river bursting the dike. The sound of the surging river suddenly sounded in her body. Her complexion greatly changed, and she quickly checked the condition of her body, only to see that the sound came from her meridians. At this moment, her meridians were like a big river, and the true qi flowing in them was like a river, surging and full of power. The true qi widened her meridians, which was conducive to storing more true qi. What made her even more ecstatic was that her cultivation was soaring rapidly. Her true body had reached the speed of a rocket, and her true chi was rising steadily, impulsively reaching one realm after another, which she didn't dare to dream of recently. Moreover, there seemed to be no end to it. She was so happy that she almost fainted. Why did such a good thing fall on her? In the past, she cultivated painstakingly, comprehending the sword in the sword forest, but it was not as good as this instant change. Her eyes couldn't help but fall on 100 Faces Star-Lord's face. That young face and thin body actually contained such a terrifying power. She couldn't help but gradually understand the State Preceptor's feelings. It was not that he didn't dare to resist, but that there was no room for resistance. She was not afraid because she didn't know. Now that she finally experienced the horror of 100 Faces Star-Lord, she gradually felt awe in her heart. The finger left her forehead, and the true chi in her body stopped soaring. But for Junko, the current state was the peak that she had never been in before. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign looked at her and said casually, "I helped you to reach the 9th grade of fasting, which is equivalent to the 9th grade of innate realm. The inner strength in your body has been completely dissolved and replaced with true chi, which is the foundation of a cultivator's cultivation. As for the Grandmaster realm, you need to comprehend it yourself. That way, you can gain more." 9th grade innate stage, 9th grade Anidia? Junko sucked in a breath of cold air. She had never dreamed that she would reach such a realm so quickly. Moreover, it was not the 9th grade innate stage, but the 9th grade Anidia stage. Although she had practiced ninjutsu before, she was still a martial artist and not a cultivator. That was because most of the power in her body was transformed from inner strength. However, it was different now. The 100 Faces Star-Lord used the enlightenment technique to dissolve the original inner strength in her body, and used true chi to supplement it. Thus, she was completely transformed into a cultivator who could practice all kinds of profound and unfathomable spells. Without a doubt, Junko was overjoyed by this change. Although she had not tested it yet, she already felt that if she used the previous illusion technique, it would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. "From now on, you are my servant. I will teach you more powerful spells," the 100 Faces Star Sovereign said. Junko hesitated for a moment, and acquiesced to the 100 Faces Star Sovereign's words. Facing this kind of temptation and being intimidated by the 100 Faces Star Sovereign, she finally did not have the courage to refute, and chose to compromise. She looked at the 100 Faces Star Sovereign and asked nervously, "Then when can I defeat Tang Zheng?" Tang Zheng is also at the 9th grade of fasting, but he has more spells and a divine weapon in hand. Of course, you are not his opponent now, but as long as you follow me, that day will not be too far away. Yes. Junko nodded heavily, and her eyes flashed with intense sparks. The Imperial Preceptor's residence was destroyed, and even the Imperial Preceptor's body was not left. Junko did not attribute all of this to the 100 Faces Star Sovereign, but to Tang Zheng. The fuse of all of this was Tang Zheng. If it were not for him, everything would be normal, and there would not be so many things at all. Therefore, she hated Tang Zheng to the bone, and wanted to eat his flesh and drink his blood. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign smiled and looked into the distance. From the mountain peak, he could see the situation outside the Imperial Preceptor's residence clearly. He narrowed his eyes slightly and patted Orochi's shoulder, saying, "Don't you want to increase your cultivation? Enjoy the delicious meal." Orochi heard this, and a terrifying cold light and murderous intent burst out from its eyes. The snake's tongue flickered, and its huge eyes stared into the distance. There were many soldiers there, and they surrounded the Imperial Preceptor's residence. They were armed and ready, and they did not know that misfortune was about to befall them. When they saw several figures floating down from the mountain peak in the distance, everyone's nerves became more tense, and they subconsciously tightened their grip on the guns and ammunition in their hands. "Who are you? Stop right there," the officer shouted, trying to stop them. But when they approached, and especially when they saw the huge body of Orochi, everyone trembled in fear. Some of them could not even hold the guns in their hands, and they fell to the ground. What kind of monster is that? Everyone's mind was full of question marks, and some smart people immediately shouted in fright. Open fire, don't let them come close. Da-da-da. The bullets were like raindrops, covering the sky and covering the earth as they shot towards the few people. Roar. Orochi let out a furious roar. Kill. Yamada no Orochi looked down at the crowd from above. The bullets clanged as they hit its scales, but all of them ricocheted back without leaving a single mark. Suddenly, someone finally understood the huge gap in strength between them and the enemy. Their faces were pale, and their hands holding the guns could not help but tremble. It's my turn now. Yamada no Orochi laughed sinisterly. His 8 bloody mouths swooped down like a gust of wind, crashing into the crowd with a whoosh. Ah! Instantly, screams that sounded like pigs being slaughtered rang out one after another, piercing through the clouds. One by one, the mouths of the Yamada no Orochi bit down on the bodies of many people. Kacha! The bodies were torn apart at the waist, and then they were swallowed into the stomach of the Yamada no Orochi. 100 Faces looked at all of this with a smile, as if this hellish slaughter was nothing out of the ordinary for him. And there was no fear at all. Junko's face was as pale as paper, and her stomach was churning. Finally, she could not help but vomit at the side, as if she was going to vomit out her gallbladder. 100 Faces glanced at her from the corner of his eyes, and the corner of his mouth hooked up into a meaningful smile, and he said lightly, "You have such a big reaction to such a small scene. It seems that you need to train more in the future." Junko put her hands on her thighs, bent over, and touched the corner of her mouth and asked in shock, "Why did you do this? These people are innocent people. Why did you kill them?" Orochi wants to improve his cultivation, so of course he needs these food. 100 Faces said matter-of-factly, "Food?" Junko was startled, and then she became angry. "You treat my people as food? What's wrong with that?" 100 Faces' smile did not diminish, and he stared straight at Junko. That pair of unfathomable eyes made Junko's heart thump, and she subconsciously took 3 steps back. These people are just ants, and they will die in a few decades. Now that they have died in the mouth of Orochi, at least they can be of some use, and this is their honor. You. Junko swallowed the word pervert that was at the tip of her tongue. No matter how much she said, it was equal to nothing. Everything had happened, and it was irreversible. Her heart seemed to be bleeding, and she watched her people die in the mouth of Orochi, and become the delicious food in his stomach. Perhaps, the state preceptor and the emperor never dreamed that Orochi, who they worshipped day and night, would eventually become the nightmare of the people of the island nation, and they would treat the people of the island nation as delicious food. Perhaps this was the fate of the people of the island nation, a kind of punishment for the crimes committed in the monstrous war of the past. It was just that this kind of punishment was very cruel, and it made people tremble with fear. But compared with the killings committed by their ancestors in the past, in fact, Orochi's punishment was just a small matter. Orochi was like entering the land of no words, and no one could stop him. One by one, the people of the island nation were swallowed by him. This scene of Shura hell almost made people's hearts stop beating. Junko's eyes were filled with tears, and she turned her head, unable to bear to see this cruel scene. 100 Faces frowned and said, "As my servant, if I say east, it must be east, and if I say west, it must be west. Since I brought you here, you must see this scene, and you must see it all." As soon as she finished speaking, Junko found that a huge force was controlling her neck, forcing her to turn her head little by little. She could only watch this scene with her eyes wide open, unable to even blink. She finally deeply experienced the terror of the 100 Star Sovereign. Since she had become his servant, it was almost impossible to go against his will. "Humph, you don't want your people to be eaten, do you? But I tell you, since you are my servant, you are no longer a person of the island nation. You don't even belong to any country, you only belong to me, 100 Faces. Put away your pitiful heart. This world is cruel. Only the strong can survive, the weak only have the same fate as them, at the mercy of others." The 100 Transformations Star-Lord said with a murderous aura. Junko bit her lips tightly and didn't say a word. A fierce light flashed in 100 Faces' eyes, and he said sternly, "Orochi, after you enjoy these people, march to the big city, where there are more delicious food waiting for you." Chapter 706. Early in the morning, Tang Zheng accompanied Wu on the balcony, bathing in the rising sun. This place was not far from the sea, and one could see the sea level. A red sun slowly rose from the sea level, shining brightly, illuminating the entire world. Wu Zhuo took a deep breath and said, "It's so good to be able to breathe fresh air." She had practically walked through the gates of hell, and her mental state had undergone quite a bit of change. Last night, she had slept soundly, but she had never slept so sweetly before. Her dreams were filled with Tang Zheng's figure. Tang Zheng turned his head to look at her. Her cheeks were suffused with radiance, and she was exceptionally beautiful, like a fairy that had descended to the mortal world. Tang Zheng smiled slightly and said, "After a night of rest, your injuries have mostly healed. This is all thanks to you." Wu Zhuo looked at him. "This is what I should do." After Tang Zheng finished speaking, his gaze was attracted by a person in the distance. His pupils constricted as he said, "He's back." Wu also immediately turned his head to look, revealing an excited expression as he shouted in ecstasy, "Master is back." Hua! Many people rushed out of the house and rushed towards Wu Junshan to welcome him. Lan Yu walked at the front. When the couple was young, their relationship was extremely good. However, because of Tang Zheng's matter, their relationship was broken. However, ever since Tang Zheng appeared, this crack had gradually been mended, and the relationship between the two of them began to improve by leaps and bounds. Tang Zheng and Wu stood on the balcony, and saw that Wu Junshan was in a sorry state. His clothes were tattered in many places, and it was obvious that he had experienced a fierce battle. Although he did not see it with his own eyes, he could imagine how intense the battle was. Tang Zheng understood that if not for Wu Junshan, it would not have been so easy for them to leave the imperial advisor's mansion so easily. Wu Junshan also raised his head, his gaze first landing on Tang Zheng's body, his expression extremely complicated. Then it stopped on Wu Zhuo's face, revealing a look of joy between his brows. Wu Junshan walked up with the crowd surrounding him. Tang Zheng said slowly, "You're back." Wu Junshan squeezed out a smile and nodded, "I'm back." They didn't break through the layer of paper between father and son, but it was obvious that their relationship had improved. Wu Junshan wasn't in a hurry to get results. Getting Tang Zheng to take the initiative to speak was already a rare improvement. "Marshal, how are your injuries?" Wu Junshan asked again. "Master, Tang Zheng has cured me." Wu Junshan revealed a gratified expression as he took a deep look at Tang Zheng. Subconsciously, Tang Zheng was still somewhat resistant to Wu Junshan. His expression turned solemn as he asked, "What happened to the 100 Change Star Sovereign and Yamada no Orochi?" Wu Junshan's expression also tightened. Seeing this, the others all gathered around, wanting to know the final result. After a great battle between Multiform Star Lord and Orochi, Orochi escaped into the sea, and Multiform Star Lord chased after him. It seems that the two sides fought again in the sea. As for the final result, I did not see it with my own eyes, but according to my many years of experience, Orochi will definitely not be able to defeat Multiform Star Lord. Sooner or later, he will fall into his hands. Hearing this, everyone's expression turned grim. 100 Change Star Sovereign was already powerful enough, and with the help of Yamada no Orochi, who else in this world could stop them? Everyone looked at each other in dismay as they thought of this matter. Wu was the first to speak. "Then isn't this world in danger?" Wu Junshan did not say anything, but it was equivalent to tacitly agreeing. Tang Zheng sighed. Even without the 100 Change Star Sovereign, this world was not necessarily safe. There were too many dangers in this world, but ordinary people did not know about them. "What should we do next?" Lan Yu asked. "We can't go back to that island, and the island nation naturally can't stay there for long. As for Huaxia, with the pervasive Li Palace and the mysterious power behind the Li Palace and the Great Elder, our situation is not optimistic. If we go back, we might be like sheep in a tiger's den." Of course, Lan Yu was not afraid, but she had to consider the safety of the others. These dozens of people who had always followed her husband and wife, she had to think for them. This time, Wu Junshan also fell into silence. He who was resourceful was at his wit's end. Originally, he had always thought that his plan was flawless, and that the uninhabited island was his last resort. But in the end, after decades of planning, he still couldn't escape the investigation of the Li Palace. Furthermore, he was wiped out in one fell swoop, almost burying everyone's lives. This was his mistake as a leader. Therefore, when Lan Yu asked this question, he couldn't give an answer for the time being. Silence, the oppressive atmosphere spread out. Many people subconsciously lowered their heads, their morale low. The impact of this incident on everyone was self-evident. Now that they saw that their leader was at his wits' end, the hesitation and helplessness in everyone's hearts completely exploded. Seeing everyone's worried expressions, Tang Zheng's mind began to work. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. He remembered the pirate island he had destroyed. That island's whereabouts were uncertain, and even the warships of various countries couldn't find it. And wasn't that island carried by Gui Qiansui? This was a moving island that could change its position at will. It was almost impossible for the enemy to investigate it. Moreover, the island's defense would be combined with Gui Qiansui's. Gui Qiansui had a natural advantage in defense. If he built a new moving island like this, wouldn't these people have a place to go? He couldn't wait, his eyebrows dancing as he said, "I have an idea." The others immediately gathered around. These people were more and more trusting of Tang Zheng. At critical moments, he was always able to turn danger into safety. His strange moves made people involuntarily look forward to it. What idea? Wu Junshan couldn't wait to ask. We want to build a moving island on the sea, so that when everyone lives on it, the enemy will find it extremely difficult to find us. We will be safe. Tang Zheng said solemnly. Moving island? Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect that Tang Zheng would come up with such an outrageous idea. It was simply unrealistic. As if he saw through everyone's thoughts, Tang Zheng confidently smiled and said, "For others, a moving island is almost impossible, but for me, it is not impossible." Oh, everyone's interest was aroused. Even if Wu and Tang Zheng had crossed the ocean together and had seen the magic of Gui Qiansui, for a moment, they didn't think of this point. Looking at everyone's anxious eyes, Tang Zheng didn't keep them in suspense. He faintly smiled and said, "Gui Qiansui can do this. It can carry an island in the sea and can move it at any time. It even has a defensive function." Gui Qiansui? Everyone subconsciously turned their head to look inside the room. The two small figures were behind the floor-to-ceiling window, and their spirits were not very good. Gui Qiansui was injured, and a crack appeared on his turtle shell. Xiaobai was also injured, but it was not as serious as Gui Qiansui. But after the continuous battle last night, it consumed a lot of energy. So, the two little guys were a little dispirited. It can do this? Everyone still felt that it was inconceivable. How could Gui Qiansui's small body carry such a huge island? Gui Qiansui opened his eyes. Last night he had been healing. When he heard everyone's conversation, he staggered out. Looking up at everyone, he slowly said, "Immortal, I am seriously injured. My current spiritual power is not enough to carry an island." Hearing a turtle speak human language, except for a few people, most of them showed a look of seeing a ghost. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He immediately saw the crack on Gui Qiansui's back. If not for saving him, Gui Qiansui would not have been bitten by Yamada no Orochi's fangs, let alone be seriously injured. "Gui Qiansui, don't worry. I will find a way to heal you," Tang Zheng said seriously with a calm face. Gui Qiansui shook his head and said, "Immortal, this time my injury is very serious. I won't be able to recover in a short time." Tang Zheng said without hesitation, "Let's find a way together. There will be a solution." After a pause, he said to Wu Junshan and the others, "It seems that we will have to stay here for a while." During this time, everyone must be on high alert. Last night, I killed the emperor and destroyed the Kokyo. The island nation is in complete chaos. Moreover, the other party must want to find us even if they have to dig 3 feet into the ground. So, they may follow any clues to find us. Most people did not know that Tang Zheng had done such a big thing last night. Especially Wu, who looked at him in shock. Seeing this, Lan Yu reminded, "At that time, you were in a critical situation. He was avenging you." Wu seemed to have been immobilized. She was motionless as she stared at Tang Zheng. Her eyes seemed to have ripples. Even a fool could understand the emotions in her eyes. Lan Yu smiled knowingly and winked at everyone. Everyone understood tacitly and tiptoed away from the balcony. Even Gui Qiansui tactfully returned to the house. There were only 2 people left on the balcony. For eyes looked at each other. Too many feelings were revealed from each other's eyes. This was the first time Wu knew about Tang Zheng's crazy actions last night. This moved her more than when Tang Zheng saved her life. Because Tang Zheng's actions were too dangerous. What kind of place was the Kokyo? Who was the emperor? Destroying the Kokyo and killing the emperor. Even without thinking, one would know how difficult the task was. In this world, there were not many people who had the courage to do such a thing. But in order to avenge her, Tang Zheng did not hesitate to put himself in danger. This moved her to the extreme. She stared at Tang Zheng and could not help but walk to his side. She gently hugged his waist and leaned her face on his neck. She clearly said, "In this life, no matter what you do to me, I will never leave you." In just a short sentence, she seemed to have exhausted all her strength. Then, her whole body softly leaned on Tang Zheng's body. Tang Zheng's heart seemed to have been punched. His hands also hugged her body. Chapter 707. Time flies. It has been a few days since Tang Zheng made a ruckus in the Kokyo. During this time, Tang Zheng and the others learned about the changes in the island nation from the TV. After the death of the emperor, the whole country was under martial law. Every port and airport was strictly controlled, and there were countless people patrolling every day. In addition, the royal family also sent out troops to investigate the whole country, and vowed to find the murderer even if they have to dig 3 feet into the ground. However, the storm did not completely stop, and there were many cases of people disappearing in many cities, and according to preliminary statistics, there were more than 10,000 people. An invisible fear shrouded the sky of this small place, and the people were in a constant state of panic. Fortunately, the place that Tang Zheng and the others chose was relatively remote, and the carpet search did not reach this place yet. In the past few days, Tang Zheng had been looking for a way to heal Gui Qiansui. However, no matter how many methods he tried, it was all in vain. That crack was still a ghastly sight. Without Gui Qiansui, they could not safely leave the island nation, let alone build a moving island in the sea. Tang Zheng failed again, and looked deeply at Gui Qiansui, and his eyes could not help but become gloomy. "Immortal, it's all my fault for being useless, and dragging you down." Gui Qiansui blamed himself. "Is identical to Gui Qiansui. You were injured because of me, and I did not protect you well." Tang Zheng's finger gently brushed the turtle shell, and said self-deprecatingly, "I have always boasted about how great I am, but now I am helpless. My injury can only be healed after a long time, unless you have the Turtle Clan's Oracle Bone. Then the wound can be healed in a short time." Oracle Bone. Tang Zheng's expression froze, and subconsciously sat up straight. What is an Oracle Bone? The Oracle Bone is the sacred object of the Turtle Clan. In ancient times, humans carved many mysterious and complicated words on the turtle shell of my clan. These turtle shells are the Oracle Bone, and have unpredictable power. It is the sacred object of the Turtle Clan. Not only can it heal injuries, but more importantly, it contains many of the Turtle Clan's secret methods, and if you practice these secret methods, your cultivation can advance by leaps and bounds. Gui Qiansui said with yearning. "Then where are the Oracle Bones?" Tang Zheng asked impatiently. Gui Qiansui shook his head. "The history of the Oracle Bone is too long. It is said that it has been lost for a long time. The Dragon Clan once collected it, but no one knows where it is." Dragons? Tang Zheng's head twitched. Wasn't the Langia Pavilion the place where the Dragon Clan stored their treasures? Since this Oracle Bone was so powerful, it was naturally a rare treasure. Would it be kept in the Langia Pavilion? "Do you think there will be Oracle Bones in Langia Pavilion?" Tang Zheng asked. Langia Pavilion? Gui Qiansui's small eyes twitched. He was the one who told Tang Zheng about Langia Pavilion. He shook his little head and said, "I don't know either." After hesitating for a moment, it added, The Langya Pavilion is a place where the dragon clan keeps their treasures. The oracle bone might really be kept there. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and was overjoyed. Okay, then I'll go to the Langya Pavilion to look for it. Go to the Langya Pavilion to look for it? Gui Qiansui was shocked. The Langya Pavilion was an important place for the dragon clan. Gui Qiansui had only heard of it, and had never seen it with his own eyes. Even though he told Tang Zheng about the Langya Pavilion last time, he didn't know that Tang Zheng could directly go to the Langya Pavilion. Seeing Tang Zheng nodding seriously, Gui Qiansui knew that he was not joking. He said suspiciously, "Immortal, only the dragon clan can go to the Langya Pavilion. We can't do it." Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously and said, "I'll tell you a secret. I can also go to the Langya Pavilion." Really? Gui Qiansui was shocked. He raised his little head high. How is that possible? Isn't Langya Pavilion only accessible to the dragon clan? Tang Zheng muttered. The five-clawed golden dragon once said that only the dragon clan had the dragon seal, and he had it. Now Gui Qiansui said that only the dragon clan could go to the Langya Pavilion. Did he really become a member of the dragon clan? He shook his head and threw these messy thoughts to the back of his mind. He said seriously, I can really go to the Langya Pavilion. Since the oracle bone may be in the Langya Pavilion, then I'll have to try. Do you know which floor the oracle bone is on? Seeing Gui Qiansui's confused face, Tang Zheng shook his head and said, It seems that you don't know either. I'll have to explore by myself. It had been a month since the last time he entered the Langya Pavilion. Tang Zheng could enter the Langya Pavilion again. Now he could only go to the second floor of the Langya Pavilion. There were no oracle bones on the first two floors. It must be on the higher floors. But his cultivation was not there yet. But now there was a glimmer of hope. He had to try. Let's go to the third floor first, and see if there are any oracle bones there. Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and said, Gui Qiansui, guard me. Don't let others disturb me. Immortal, are you going to the Langya Pavilion? Yes. How do I get there? Tang Zheng pointed at his own forehead, smiled mysteriously, and said, I'm going. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes, as if he was a senior monk in meditation. Gui Qiansui looked at him curiously and crawled around him. He did not understand how Tang Zheng went to the Langya Pavilion. At this moment, Tang Zheng was standing in front of the Langya Pavilion. The towering pavilion was so tall that people could only look up. Tang Zheng looked up and muttered to himself, Oracle Bone, where are you? He walked into the Langya Pavilion and went straight to the second floor. He stood at the stairs leading to the third floor. The stairs to the third floor were in front of him, but he did not dare to rashly step on it. His Dragon God technique had only reached the second level. If he rashly stepped on the stairs, he would be mercilessly bounced back by the power of the Langya Pavilion. He would waste this opportunity to enter. The last trip to the Langya Pavilion was still fresh in his memory. All along, the dragons who entered the Langya Pavilion could only stay for a quarter of an hour. But last time, Tang Zheng unexpectedly broke the limit. He actually stayed for an hour, which was far beyond the limit of the Langya Pavilion. Moreover, at that time, he used the time in the Langya Pavilion to read many books on the first and second floor. He improved his comprehension and benefited a lot. Sharpening the axe will not delay the work of cutting firewood. Let's cultivate first and strive to break through the Dragon God technique. Tang Zheng was not in a hurry. Instead, he sat down in front of the stairs and focused on cultivating. The Dragon God technique was obscure and profound. Even for the Dragon Clan, it was very difficult. The same was true for Tang Zheng. He closed his eyes and silently operated the Dragon God technique. The true qi in his body flowed. The little golden dragon in his glabella surged and emitted a dazzling golden light. Tang Zheng's cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds since the last time he entered the Langya Pavilion. When he operated the Dragon God technique, he clearly felt that the places where he felt stagnant before had become unobstructed. The true qi flowed quickly in each vein and finally gathered in his glabella. Whoosh! A golden light shot out from his glabella. Gui Qiansui was startled by this scene and subconsciously staggered backward. But the next scene shocked Gui Qiansui again. There was a kind of trembling from the depths of his soul. In the golden light, A golden dragon was shining brightly. It was more dazzling than the surrounding golden light. However, this golden dragon did not fly out. Instead, it was in Tang Zheng's glabella. But Tang Zheng's skin seemed to be transparent, so the golden dragon could be seen clearly. In fact, Gui Qiansui had never seen a real dragon clan. When he was born, the South Sea Dragon Palace had been abandoned by the Dragon Clan. However, there were murals of the Dragon Clan in the South Sea Dragon Palace. Gui Qiansui had been looking at these murals since he was a child. The Dragon Clan in the murals had a majesty that made all living things bow down. Gui Qiansui had always yearned for the Dragon Clan, and hoped that he could see a real Dragon Clan one day. Although this wish had not been realized yet, Tang Zheng's situation at this moment made him clearly feel something of the Dragon Clan. The dragon aura. Although the dragon in Tang Zheng's glabella was very young, the dragon aura it emitted was not something ordinary creatures could resist. At least, Gui Qiansui could not resist it and retreated in fear. What is going on? Why is there a dragon in the immortal's body? Is he also a dragon clan? No, absolutely impossible. I have never heard of a person becoming a dragon clan. This is simply a fantasy. Gui Qiansui shook his head fiercely and denied this absurd idea. Once again he looked at it attentively. The golden light on the little dragon's body became more and more dazzling, as if the golden light from all directions was absorbed by it. From all directions, countless true qi poured into the glabella and integrated into the golden light. Suddenly, the golden light shone and wrapped the little golden dragon in an instant. The two claws kept dancing, which was particularly eye-catching. Time passed by little by little. Tang Zheng felt that the true qi was endless, surging like a river, quickly pouring into the glabella and replenishing the golden light. He had already found a way. The increase of his cultivation was indeed very useful. The true qi of the 9th grade of fasting was really terrifying. After turning into golden light, it replenished the golden dragon little by little. The golden light hovered in the golden dragon's abdomen and gathered little by little. Lingering together, a small dragon claw slowly formed. Tang Zheng was slightly stunned and immediately overjoyed. This is the rhythm of the dragon god's secret arts breakthrough. At this critical moment, he must not drop the ball. So he quickly calmed his mind, calmed down, and stared at the golden dragon and the dragon claw that was in the process of forming. Time passed by little by little. The golden light gradually dimmed. But at this moment, the golden dragon's abdomen had already grown a third dragon claw. Wow! Gui Qiansui saw this scene clearly. Although he did not know what was going on, when he saw the dragon claw formed, he could not help but exclaim. This scene was too magical. It was not something that could be seen casually. Moreover, when the third dragon claw grew, the dragon aura of the golden dragon was obviously improved by a level. Chapter 708. Tang Zheng looked at the three-clawed golden dragon in his glabella. It was vivid and lifelike, as if it was really alive. The third stage of the dragon god technique, I really did it. Tang Zheng excitedly waved his fist. The 9th grade of Inidia really had an extraordinary effect, breaking through the third stage of the dragon god technique so easily. If the 5-clawed golden dragon knew about this, it would definitely be shocked. It had always vowed that the dragon god technique was very difficult to cultivate, but ever since I started cultivating the first layer, it has been a lot easier for me. He looked up and saw the stairs leading to the 3rd floor of the Langya Pavilion in front of him. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile, and he walked up. Creak. His feet landed on the stairs, making a slight sound, but he was not ejected out of the Langya Pavilion by the mysterious force like before. He breathed a sigh of relief and strode up to the 3rd floor. Just as he stepped into the 3rd floor, a murderous aura hit him in the face. This was not a murderous aura, but a murderous aura that filled the sky. It was so dense that it could not be dispersed, like water, and he was like a fish in the water. His smile immediately disappeared, and his brows furrowed. Such a strong murderous aura was definitely not a good sign. What exactly was so dangerous about the 3rd floor? He cautiously looked over, and his pupils instantly dilated. This floor was not like the first 2 floors, which were filled with an antique and scholarly atmosphere. This floor was like a huge display stage. Not only were the four walls filled with a dazzling array of items, there were also many items on the shelves on the ground. His breathing involuntarily quickened, and he muttered to himself, "I knew that the Langya Pavilion would definitely have these good things. Sure enough, treasures, these are all treasures." This entire floor was filled with treasures. Sabers, spears, swords, and halberds were the most common weapons. There were also many strange weapons, dazzling the eyes. However, this time he didn't come for the weapon but for the oracle bone. "Oracle bone, where are you? Don't be on the floors above. If that's the case, I won't be able to do anything." He muttered to himself endlessly and started searching the floors. When his gaze swept past the weapons one by one, he could not help but feel his emotions fluctuate, because these weapons were not ordinary weapons, but magic treasures. The first thing that caught his eye was the outermost yellow-grade transcendent artifact. This was the most basic transcendent artifact. If Tang Zheng had just started cultivating, of course he would be very fond of it. Now he was no longer the same as before, and yellow-grade transcendent artifacts were nothing in his eyes. As he walked forward, a profound grade transcendent artifact came into view, and he couldn't help but nod. Although he didn't need it, there were too many people around him, and there was bound to be someone who needed it. Further ahead were the Earth-grade magic treasures. The number was much less than the previous magic treasures, only 5 in total. However, in Tang Zheng's eyes, these 5 magic treasures were not simple. They were definitely the best of the Earth-grade magic treasures. In the future, after refining them, they could also be upgraded to Heaven-grade magic treasures. He suppressed the joy in his heart, and went to the center of the floor. There were 3 antique shelves, but the shelves were covered with something, so he couldn't see what was inside. Could there be a heaven-ranked magic treasure inside? Tang Zheng muttered to himself as Xian Shou lifted up a cover. Shua! A multicolored light shone out, illuminating the entire floor. It was like a rainbow, gorgeous and beautiful. Wow! Even though Tang Zheng was experienced and knowledgeable, he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, because it was really too beautiful. A multicolored ribbon quietly appeared in front of him. Upon closer inspection, the ribbon was floating about a finger's width away from the shelves. Heaven-grade magic treasure. Tang Zheng cried out in surprise. Although he couldn't see what was so magical about this magic treasure, the power and aura it emitted still allowed Tang Zheng to make an accurate judgment. He carefully picked up the magic treasure, and a cool feeling spread from his palm to his whole body. It was as if he drank a bottle of ice water on a hot summer day, making him feel relaxed and happy. However, a few other large words appeared in his mind at the same time. Rainbow damask. This heaven-grade magic treasure is called rainbow damask. It's obviously more suitable for women. Tang Zheng already had many women by his side. Martial was a martial artist, and she cultivated the Inferno Divine Palm. Moreover, her martial arts were extremely masculine, completely different from the rainbow damask's feminine. Yi Ding Dang. When he thought of her, Tang Zheng's mood couldn't help but become gloomy. Before leaving Huaxia, the two of them had a conflict because of Princess Anne. Moreover, looking at Yi Dingdong's appearance, the situation this time was especially serious. Fang Shishir. Tang Zheng's head went soft. She was alone abroad, and he didn't know how she was doing. Moreover, other than the gold jade purple robe that he gave her, she didn't have any other suitable magic weapons. The cultivation method she cultivated was the cloud water art, which was graceful and agile, not feminine. The rainbow damask was very suitable for her. He nodded. Then this heaven-grade magic treasure would belong to Fang Shishir. He put the rainbow damask into his sumaru pouch, and casually opened the other cover. Shua! A sharp sword light soared into the sky, as if it wanted to break through Langya Pavilion. Tang Zheng's gaze trembled as he looked at the magic treasure in surprise. It was a 3-foot-long sword with a translucent dark green body. It was sparkling and translucent, as if the green of the Buddha forest had been completely absorbed into the sword. However, it also emitted a powerful sword intent. Good sword, Tang Zheng couldn't help but praise. If he didn't already have the War Soul sword, he probably wouldn't have been able to resist using this sword as his own. Moreover, It was also a heaven-grade magic treasure. Clear Wind Sword. When Tang Zheng held the sword hilt with both hands, the name of the sword jumped into his mind. Moreover, this sword had another characteristic that made Tang Zheng startled. This sword seemed to have no weight at all. It was light as a feather, as if he was holding air in his hand. What a gentle sword name, but this sword isn't gentle at all. It's definitely a killing weapon. Tang Zheng exclaimed. In his heart, a person involuntarily jumped out. Yi Ding Dang. I've already passed the wind-chasing sword art to Ding Dang. The wind-chasing sword art is fast, fierce, and accurate. It has high requirements for the sword. If the sword is light and thin, and can cut through even the slightest hair, then when used together with the wind-chasing sword art, it will definitely display an even stronger power. Tang Zheng's eyes were filled with joy. The clear wind sword and the wind-chasing sword art were a perfect match. Moreover, both had the word wind in their names. It was like a match made in heaven. Although Yi Ding Dang was a martial artist and the clear wind sword was a magic treasure, magic treasures could also be used as normal weapons. It was just a bit wasteful. However, because Yi Ding Dang practiced the wind-chasing sword art, she didn't need inner strength to control the sword. She only needed to rely on the exquisite sword moves, which was a perfect match for the clear wind sword. I'll give this clear wind sword to Ding Dang. I hope she likes it. He didn't hesitate to make a decision, and put away the clear wind sword. Finally, his gaze fell on the third cover. As for what was inside, he had no idea. He didn't rush to open it. His heart was a bit nervous. He had already searched all the other places on this floor. This was the only place left. If it wasn't an oracle bone, then this trip would be a waste of time. He didn't think that he would be able to reach the fourth stage of the Dragon God technique in a short period of time. This was related to Gue Qiansui's injury. It was related to where Wu Junshan and the others would go next. In short, this matter was very important. He took a deep breath and carefully lifted the cover. At this moment his heart stopped beating. His eyes stared straight at it. There was no dazzling rainbow light, no sharp sword chi. There was only a black thing the size of a palm. It was engraved with veined patterns. What is this? Tang Zheng's face revealed a look of suspicion, as the appearance of this item was not that great. It could not be compared to the 7-colored silk or the clear wind sword, but since it was placed here so solemnly, then it was definitely not trash. He picked up the thing. There was no reaction. The name of this thing did not appear in his mind. What the hell is this thing? Tang Zheng looked at it over and over again. For a long time, he didn't get a specific answer. The veined patterns engraved on it were very complicated. It was like a small tadpole. It looked like words, but it didn't look like words. Tang Zheng had never seen such a strange thing. After searching all the places, he still couldn't find the oracle bone. He couldn't help but feel dispirited and disappointed. God, are you playing with me? You gave me hope, and then instantly made me despair. You can't play with people like this. Tang Zheng waved his fist above his head and angrily roared. The voice hovered above his head for a while, and then disappeared. Only Tang Zheng and the weapons in the room were left. Well, since it's like this, I can only think of another way. Tang Zheng casually threw the black thing into the sumaru pouch, and then strode downstairs. He didn't put the other weapons into the pouch. Because now he was surrounded by warriors, he didn't need these magic weapons for the time being. Tang Zheng slowly opened his eyes. Gue Qiansui hurriedly crawled over and couldn't wait to ask. Upper Immortal, how's the situation? Tang Zheng's expression dimmed as he said. I entered the Langya Pavilion, but there are many floors in the Langya Pavilion and my cultivation can only reach the 3rd floor. I didn't find the oracle bone. Maybe the oracle bone is on a higher floor. Gue Qiansui heard this, and the expectation in his eyes immediately disappeared. It was replaced by disappointment and loss. Gue Qiansui, I'm sorry. I couldn't help you. Tang Zheng apologized. Gue Qiansui raised his head and said, Upper Immortal, you're too kind. It's my great honor to find the oracle bone in Langya Pavilion for me. Even if I die, I'm already satisfied. Moreover, this injury won't take my life. I just need more time to recover. But I'm really useless if I delay Upper Immortal's important matter. Gue Qiansui not only didn't blame him, but also kept blaming himself. Tang Jing quickly said, Gui Qiansui, don't worry. I'll practice hard and strive to reach the higher floor of Langya Pavilion as soon as possible to find the oracle bone for you. Upper Immortal, Langya Pavilion is an important place of the dragon clan. You can go in and out freely. Moreover, a golden dragon appeared on your forehead just now. This situation has never happened before. It's a great opportunity for Upper Immortal, Gui Qiansui praised, but you'd better not let others know about this situation. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that others won't covet it. Tang Zheng was moved and nodded. He admitted that Gui Qiansui's reminder was very reasonable. Chapter 709. Tang Zheng remembered his harvest in Langya Pavilion, but he didn't know what that black thing was, so he took it out and asked Gui Qiansui, "What do you think this is?" That thing flew to Gui Qiansui and stared at it with its small eyes. It touched it with its claws and said, "This." For a moment it was a little sluggish. Tang Zheng was startled and asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Gui Qiansui raised his head and looked at Tang Zheng with a strange expression. "Immortal, isn't this an oracle bone?" "What?" Tang Zheng was shocked and almost jumped up. "It's different from what you described." The oracle bone described by Gui Qiansui was not black like this, and there were turtle shell patterns on it, but there were no turtle shell patterns on it except for the scribbles. So, Tang Zheng thought for a long time, but still didn't recognize it as the oracle bone he was looking for. Gui Qiansui said, "I'm just talking about an ordinary oracle bone, but this is not an ordinary one, so you didn't recognize it. In fact, if I didn't touch it, I wouldn't recognize it at a glance. The oracle bone is the shell of the turtle clan, and it has the unique aura of our turtle clan. When I touched it, I could feel this aura. As for the uniqueness of this turtle shell, it has been refined by someone. Refined before." Tang Zheng suspiciously creased his eyebrows. Gui Qiansui nodded. "Yes, the turtle's shell is very hard and can be used for defense. Some turtle shells can be refined into magic weapons, and this is one of them." "You mean this is a magic weapon?" Tang Zheng asked in surprise. He didn't feel any special aura from it, so he didn't think of it as a magic weapon. Gui Qiansui nodded. "Of course, this is a heaven-level defensive magic weapon. Immortal, you can infuse your true qi into it, and everything will be clear." Hearing this, Tang Zheng put the oracle bone in his hand and infused his true qi into it. Whoosh! A ray of black light gushed out from the oracle bone, forming a shield. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up and was surprised. It's really a heaven-level magic weapon. When he infused his true qi into it, he could finally feel the power of the oracle bone. However, this magic weapon didn't have a name like the other two magic weapons. "Immortal, you don't have a defensive magic weapon. This oracle bone is suitable for you. You can name it first," Gui Qiansui said. "Isn't the oracle bone to heal your injuries? Healing won't damage the oracle bone. After I use it is still a heaven-level magic weapon." Tang Zheng suddenly realized that he had misunderstood and thought that after healing, the oracle bone would lose its use. The more he looked at it, the more he liked it. It was more and more. Now he had the heaven-shocking bow, shooting sun arrows, battle soul sword, dragon-trapped rope, and 9 revolving pill furnace. Among them, the dragon-trapped rope could occasionally be turned into a shield and used as a defensive magic weapon, but after all, it was not a true defensive magic weapon, and its defensive power was not strong. If he had a magic weapon with strong defensive power, his overall strength would definitely have a qualitative leap. Tang Zheng's thoughts fluctuated as he played with the oracle bone. Since the oracle bone is the sacred object of your turtle clan, then let's call it Sacred Armor Shield. Sacred Armor Shield, good name. This matter should not be delayed. Use it to heal first. Tang Zheng impatiently urged. "Yes, Immortal, please wait for a moment." With the oracle bone, Gui Qiansui was full of confidence and spirit. The oracle bone flew into the air and flew above Gui Qiansui's head. Suddenly, a ray of light shot out from Gui Qiansui's back and directly hit the oracle bone. The oracle bone buzzed and shook. Then a ray of black light fell and merged with the light on Gui Qiansui's back and fell on his turtle shell. In an instant, Gui Qiansui was wrapped by the black light, and Tang Zheng could not see what was happening. He silently stood by the side and stared at Gui Qiansui. At this time, Marshall quietly walked in from the outside. When she saw this scene, she was surprised and asked, "What is going on?" "Gui Qiansui is healing. It won't be long before we can leave this place," Tang Zheng said excitedly. Marshall was slightly startled and said with a complicated expression, "That's great." In fact, Marshall's heart was filled with mixed feelings. These few days, although they were in a foreign country and could be in danger at any time, but it was her happiest days. Tang Zheng spent most of his time with her. Moreover, ever since that intimate hug on the balcony that day and the mutual confession of their hearts had come together. They had a tacit understanding, and were very sweet. Deep in Marshall's heart, she did not want this perfect state to be broken. She knew that once she left this place, Tang Zheng would not completely belong to her. Yi Dingdang, Fang Shishir, Lu Qingmei, and even Princess Anne and perhaps more women would flock to Tang Zheng. Then she would not be able to monopolize him. She did not feel it before, but now she faintly felt sour. But she had been silently burying this feeling in the bottom of her heart. However, she also knew that this was completely her wishful thinking, and was not realistic at all. Tang Zheng would leave this place sooner or later and return to Huaxia, but she did not expect this day to come so soon. Tang Zheng looked at her deeply, and noticed the strangeness between her eyebrows. His heart moved as he held her hand and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Marshall squeezed out a smile and clasped his hand, saying, "Nothing, I'm happy to hear this news." Tang Zheng did not think too much about it and said, "All of this depends on Gui Qiansui, but I don't know how long it will take for it to heal." Marshall also glanced at Gui Qiansui, who was enveloped in light, and said absent-mindedly, "It doesn't matter how long we wait." "Oh right, are you coming back to Huaxia with me this time, or are you staying on the island?" Tang Zheng asked. Marshall's expression panicked. She did not know how her master and mistress would arrange for her. She could not help but feel a little scared and said, "I don't know either." "This is your choice." She hesitated for a moment, then said, "I want to go back to Huaxia with you." Tang Zheng's mouth hooked up into a smile. He gently wrapped his arms around her waist and said with a mischievous smile, "Is it because you can't bear to part with me?" Marshall was a little embarrassed. These days when Tang Zheng had nothing to do, he would smile mischievously and move his hands and feet. He was like an irritable little monkey, which often made Marshall feel shy. In the past, the relationship between the two of them was too rigid. Now they were like a couple in love. Occasionally, their intimate actions made Marshall's heart beat faster. She was even more excited than when they were intimate. "Nonsense." Marshall rolled her eyes at him. Tang Zheng's mood was very good. He smiled and said, "There are no outsiders here. What are you afraid of? It doesn't matter if you tell the truth." Marshall subconsciously looked at Gui Qiansui. "It is healing. It can't hear." Tang Zheng said, "Humph, I won't say. Master and mistress have been waiting for your news. Since Gui Qiansui's injury is almost healed, I will immediately tell them the good news." After that, her figure flashed and escaped from Tang Zheng's devil claw. Tang Zheng shook his head and gave a knowing smile. A day and a night passed. The light that wrapped around Gui Qiansui dissipated. Gui Qiansui finished healing. There were no scars on his back. He was full of energy again. He excitedly said, "Immortal, the oracle bone contains my turtle clan's spiritual energy. It is this spiritual energy that helped me to heal quickly." Tang Zheng faintly smiled and glanced at the oracle bone. There were no changes, so he casually put it away and said, "Since it is like this, a long night is full of dreams. We will immediately depart." "Yes." Gui Qiansui excitedly shook his head. This group of people went out of the house and went straight to the sea. Everyone was very excited. They were finally going to leave this damned place. They almost lost their lives. Moreover, some of their companions were sacrificed. However, in the end, they turned this country upside down. It could be considered as a temporary release of their anger. This area was very desolate. When they arrived at the seaside, they did not meet anyone. The sea was just under their feet. Tang Zheng nodded to Gui Qiansui. Gue Qiansui immediately climbed into the water. When it was immersed in the water, its speed was significantly faster. It was completely submerged by the sea. Gue Qiansui stopped, turned around and opened his mouth. A bubble came out of his mouth. This bubble was getting bigger and bigger. Finally, it became the size of a room, enough to accommodate dozens of people. If we enter the bubble, we can dive to the bottom of the sea. In this way, the enemy will not find us easily. Tang Zheng did not think that the enemy would only intercept them at the port and the airport. He was afraid that the Maritime Self-Defense Force would also be arranged to patrol the sea. They would not let them go easily. When they were at the bottom of the lake, they experienced the mystery of the bubble. So they entered the bubble. The bubble quickly sank to the bottom of the sea. There was no trace of them on the surface of the sea. Gue Qiansui took the lead and led the way. The bubble automatically followed his footsteps. Everyone opened their eyes wide and looked at the world under the sea in amazement. This kind of treatment was not common. They should seize the time to enjoy the beautiful scenery of the sea. The bottom of the sea was really beautiful. Countless kinds of fish swam from both sides of the bubble. Some of them curiously looked around, looking at the strange big bubble and the people inside. Wu opened his eyes wide and looked around. His face showed a surprised expression. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu looked at each other. Both of them showed a gratified expression. All of this was due to their son's credit. The so-called, the student surpasses the master. Qiansui Gue and Bubble were not slow. They had already drifted far away from the coast and arrived at the deep sea. The surrounding scenery was more colorful, and there were many huge fishes swimming by on both sides. It was a sight to behold. Chapter 7:10. Seeing Gue Qiansui stop, everyone's nerves tightened. Tang Zheng quickly asked, "What's wrong?" "We encountered an enemy." "Enemy?" Everyone was surprised. They were in the deep sea. How could they encounter an enemy? However, everyone quickly understood what was going on. They saw a huge black object flying over from afar. Submarine. Everyone suddenly realized that the island nation had not only intercepted and investigated in the sea and the air, but also deployed a submarine at the bottom of the sea. Tang Zheng and the others thought that they were undetected, but they accidentally ran into the enemy's encirclement. Many people's complexions suddenly changed. They were in the deep sea and not on land. Submarines were undoubtedly the overlords of the sea. Although they were strong individually, they could not use their skills in the sea. Gue Qiansui seemed to know what everyone was thinking. He stood in front of the bubble and said, "Don't panic. So what if it's a submarine? They can't do whatever they want in the sea." Tang Zheng smiled and comforted them. "Don't worry everyone. Gue Qiansui has his own countermeasures." Seeing that Tang Zheng was so confident, everyone temporarily relaxed and returned to their stomachs as they stared ahead without blinking. The submarine had already approached. Compared to such a huge object, Tang Zheng and the others were like weak little dots that could not withstand the wind. They would be easily smashed into pieces. Moreover, the enemy would not choose a head-on collision, because with a burst of snow-white water, 2 torpedoes were shot out directly, drawing a white line in the water. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, unable to take their eyes off this scene. Suddenly, Gue Qiansui's body lit up with a burst of light. With a bang, the light shone and the sea rolled. The explosion of the torpedoes was completely blocked by the light. When the light dissipated, a behemoth appeared in front of them. It was Gue Qiansui. His body was comparable to the submarine. He kicked his forelegs and turned into a white line, rushing to the submarine. Bang! With a loud bang, a pit and a crack appeared on the submarine, and the submarine sank to the bottom of the sea. "Wow!" everyone exclaimed. On land, they didn't have a deep understanding of Qiansui's power, but in the sea, his attack power increased by 100 times. "Be careful." All of a sudden, the sound of Tang Zheng's footsteps rang out. A missile silently shot over from another direction. There were also other submarines. Gue Qiansui nimbly turned his body, and the seawater tumbled, forming a tall water wall in an instant. The missile hit the water wall and exploded, but the huge shockwave did not make Gue Qiansui move an inch. "You want to play hide and seek with me?" Let's see how you can hide in this sea, Gui Qiansui said angrily. The opponent seemed to have discovered Gui Qiansui's strength, so he didn't rush forward recklessly. Instead, he chose to attack from a distance in order to play to his advantage. Gui Qiansui immediately saw through the opponent's intention and took the initiative to attack. His huge body flashed and disappeared into the dark sea. Boom! Boom! The sound of an explosion immediately came from the dark depths of the sea, making people feel as if their hearts had been hit by a heavy hammer, almost suffocating them. Everyone stared at the deep sea, trying to figure out what had happened. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion, and a ball of fire rose into the sky, but was quickly swallowed by the waves. Gui Qiansui swam back from the deep sea and said, "Shangxian, the enemy has been completely eliminated." Tang Jing nodded with relief. The destruction of 2 submarines of the island nation would certainly make them feel distressed for a long time. Let's move on, Tang Jing ordered. Gui Qiansui took the lead and led the way. This time, they didn't encounter any more enemies. After a long time, they finally arrived at their destination, the island where Wu Junshan and the others lived. Everyone floated to the surface and walked on the beach. Seeing the island again, everyone had a complicated feeling. They had just walked through the gates of hell, so their mood was particularly complicated. The others didn't know Tang Jing's plan, so they looked at him curiously. Tang Jing smiled and didn't keep them in suspense. He said directly, "Everyone has lived on this island for so long, so we are familiar with it. Moreover, there are many houses on the island that can be used after some repairs, so it's more convenient. So I chose this island to be everyone's residence in the future. Isn't this place already exposed? The island nation won't let go of this place. Isn't this a living target?" Someone questioned. "Don't worry. Didn't I say that I will build a moving island? Everyone on the moving island won't be easily discovered by the enemy," Tang Jing said. "Moving island? Isn't this a fixed island?" Everyone was skeptical. Tang Jing didn't waste time and directly asked everyone to get on the island. Then he said, "Everyone wait on the island for a while. There may be some movements later. Don't panic and be impatient." "What movements will there be? We'll know in a while." Tang Jing smiled mysteriously. "Gui Qiansui, let's go." Tang Jing and Gui Qiansui went into the sea together and soon sank to the bottom of the sea, leaving behind a group of people looking at each other and chattering. Wu Junshan looked at Lan Yu and said worriedly, "Can he do it?" Lan Yu proudly raised his head and said unquestionably, "Of course he can. How can my son not do it? Marshall, don't you think so?" Marshall had been staring at the sea. Hearing this, he turned his head and smiled. "Master's wife is right." Lan Yu looked deeply at Marshall and praised, "Marshall, you look very good when you smile. You are very feminine." In the future, smile more when you are beside Tang Jing. He will definitely like it. Men like feminine women. Master's wife. Marshall's cheeks were slightly red. Although she had been with Lan Yu all the time, Lan Yu had never said such words to her. She couldn't help but feel shy. "Silly girl, I'm doing this for your own good. He has so many women by his side. If you don't stand out, how can you compete with those women?" Lan Yu said earnestly. Marshall's cheeks turned even redder. He wished he could find a hole to hide in. Cough. Hearing this, Wu Junshan suddenly coughed, reminding them that there were others. Lan Yu turned around and looked at the crowd. "Go to the side. You have the nerve to eavesdrop on women's matters." Everyone smiled meaningfully and quickly retreated to the side. However, their gazes towards Marshall were very thought-provoking. In the past, Marshall had a high prestige in the Marshall organization. Sometimes his prestige was even higher than some elders. Now that everyone was looking at him with such gazes, he was extremely shy. Lan Yu pulled Marshall's hand and said in a low voice, "Marshall, I watched you grow up. I understand you too well. The environment of the Marshall organization has created you, turning you into a decisive person, just like a boy. The Marshall organization has let you down." "Master's wife, Lan Yu interrupted her, shook his head and said, "Listen to me first. After all, you are a girl, so you should have the characteristics of a girl. How could I not know your feelings for Tang Zheng? Actually, I have high hopes for you too. And if you become my daughter-in-law, I will definitely be very happy. However, just like I said before, men will always like gentle women. This is the nature of men. If you restrain your previous personality and pretend to be gentle, you will definitely leave a deep impression on him and make him like you even more. Don't you want that too? At this point, Marshall no longer hesitated and asked nervously, really? Of course it's true. I've been there before, so I know better than you. Oh, I'll remember. Marshall blinked her big black eyes and silently memorized it. In addition, this time, when you accompany him back to Huaxia, you will definitely experience many difficulties and obstacles. You must always accompany him. This is a good opportunity to improve your relationship and capture a man's heart. Lan Yu personally instructed, and Marshall's mind also became active. The two of them whispered to each other nonstop. Boom. With a loud sound, the earth shook and the mountains shook. Everyone was shocked and exclaimed, "What's going on? Is there an earthquake?" Lan Yu and Marshall also stopped. Lan Yu remembered Tang Zheng's warning and quickly comforted them. "Don't worry, Tang Zheng said that nothing will happen. Everyone, don't panic." The island kept shaking as if there was a real earthquake. Everyone's face tightened and looked at each other, not knowing what happened. At this moment, Tang Zheng was staring at Gui Qiansui from the bottom of the sea. Gui Qiansui became a huge monster again. This time, it was bigger than before, like an island. It broke the stone connecting the island and the bottom of the sea. With a rumbling sound, the island immediately sank to the bottom of the sea. Gui Qiansui's figure flashed and swam to the bottom of the island. The island fell on its back, splashing countless waves, and the falling momentum of the island immediately stopped. So that's how it is. Although Tang Zheng already knew about Gui Qiansui's plan, seeing it with his own eyes, he still couldn't help but feel shocked. Gui Qiansui was really too powerful. He could actually carry an island like this. Tang Zheng couldn't estimate how heavy it was. "Immortal, I'm done." Gui Qiansui fixed the island and said. Tang Zheng nodded and said, "Gui Qiansui, it's been hard on you. Now I'll leave all of them to you. Take care of them for me. Immortal, rest assured, with me here, I will do my best to protect their safety. It's just that I can't serve you in the future. No, your island is my last support. If I can't survive in the future, then I can only return to this island." Tang Zheng already had a plan. His strength was getting stronger and stronger, and the things he did were getting more and more out of hand. He couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't be chased down by others. Chapter 7:11. Tang Zheng bid farewell to Gui Qiansui, returned to the shore, and explained everything to everyone. When everyone heard this, they were all shocked. A real island had actually become a moving island, becoming everyone's resting place. The island began to move, following the current towards Huaxia, moving at a speed that was not slow. One day, a fishing boat entered their line of sight, and the island stopped moving. Tang Zheng, Wu, and Xiaobai boarded the fishing boat together, and a few days later, they boarded the land of Huaxia from the port. Once again stepping onto this hot land, Tang Zheng's heart was somewhat apprehensive. He did not know what was waiting for him. However, he would deal with whatever came his way. Whatever came his way, he would take it all on. Tang Zheng and Marshall were like a couple. On the same day, they bought a ticket back to the capital and entered the airport. Looking at the bustling crowd, Tang Zheng took a deep breath and said, "The motherland is still the best." The corner of Marshall's mouth slightly raised as she quietly looked at him. Her eyes were like water, extremely gentle. Tang Zheng turned his head to look at her, and said with a strange expression, "Ever since we left the island, I feel like you have changed into a different person." A trace of panic flashed across Marshall's eyes as she covered it up and said, "Nonsense, I didn't." Tang Zheng shrugged his shoulders, and did not think too much about it. He took the boarding pass and said, "Let's go, we can board the plane." The two of them stood up and were about to walk towards the boarding gate when suddenly, there was an uproar in the departure hall. A group of people rushed over from afar, armed with live ammunition, their bodies emitting killing intent. Squeak, squeak. Xiaobai on his shoulder cried out vigilantly, its pair of small eyes rolling around as it bared its teeth. Its injuries had already healed, but the little guy seemed to have become a little irritable. Whenever there was a situation, it would be so angry that it wanted to spit fire. Tang Zheng rubbed its head and warned, Xiaobai, don't act recklessly. Xiaobai was under his illusion. The others could not see Xiaobai's existence at all. Marshall's pupils slightly constricted as she stared at the group of people rushing over, and said in a low voice, It seems like they are coming for us. Tang Zheng expressionlessly said, Of course they are coming for us. He had already smelled a familiar aura from these people. Super soldiers modified by the Dragon Group. The Dragon Group's genetic modification project was a great success. Who knows how many super soldiers they had modified? Furthermore, the 4 heavenly kings were the best of the best. The burns on Marshall's body was caused by one of the 4 heavenly kings, the Fire King. It's the Dragon Group. Marshall also saw the clues and said softly. Tang Zheng nodded his head without batting an eyelid. The Dragon Group spies are everywhere. If we use our real identities to buy tickets, then we will definitely be monitored by them. It seems that their formation is not small. I'm afraid that there will be a big one. Didn't you and the Dragon Groups? Why do they dare to be so bold? Marshall said suspiciously. Tang Zheng laughed coldly. The balance is only temporary. There must be other factors or other forces entering and breaking this balance. Then the Dragon Group's Xingfeng will naturally be unrestrained. Marshall frowned, agreeing with his point of view. Then what should we do? Let's wait and see. Let's see what kind of medicine the other party is selling. Tang Zheng was prepared to deal with all changes, because for the time being he still could not figure out the Dragon Group's trump card. While they were talking, the Dragon Group had already surrounded the 2 of them. The other passengers were also forcefully isolated. Tang Zheng and Marshall were like dumplings filled with fillings, being chased and blocked in the middle. Tang Zheng remained unmoved. He looked around fearlessly and said, Where's Xingfeng? If the main character doesn't come out, he will send you shrimp soldiers and crab generals? Back then, when Tang Zheng's cultivation was not as good as it was now, he was not afraid of the Dragon Group, let alone now that his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. He had already reached the 9th level of Anidia, and was only a step away from the Aurus core stage. There was a commotion in the other party's crowd. 3 people walked out with a majestic gait. They glared at him and roared. How dare you? Who do you think you are? How dare you call our boss by his name? Tang Zheng glanced at the 3 of them and said, The owner didn't come out, so he let the dogs out first. Furthermore, it's 3 dogs that can bark. Oh, I remember that there were originally 4 dogs, but one of them had already turned into a dead dog, right? He could tell that the 3 of them were completely different from the other super warriors. Especially the aura on their bodies, they were extremely cold, similar to the Fire King back then. Thus, he concluded that the 3 of them were definitely the other 3 of the 4 heavenly kings. As expected, when the 3 of them heard this, they were enraged. Some of them were about to attack, but they were stopped by one of the older ones. This person was the leader of the 4 heavenly kings, the Thunder King. These 3 heavenly kings were the Thunder King, Wind King, and Water King. Together with the Fire King, they formed the camp of the 4 heavenly kings. They were the cream of the crop after genetic modification, and each of them had a set of superb skills. So what if you have a sharp tongue? In any case, you won't be able to escape today even if you have wings, the Thunder King said with killing intent. Tang Zheng was unmoved. He swept a disdainful glance at the other party and said, With just you guys? Tang Zheng, you think you're number 1 under the heavens just because other people think you're number 1? Let me tell you, this time we came prepared. If you dare to resist, then you will be going against this country, the Thunder King said solemnly. Going against the country? Tang Zheng's expression turned cold. Can your dragon group represent the country? The Thunder King said confidently. Perhaps not in the past, but today at this very moment, the dragon group represents the country. If you resist, then you will be going against the country. I am not joking with you. Actually, I would be more happy if you resist, because then you will definitely die today. I am very happy to see this kind of scene. Tang Zheng stared unblinkingly into the Thunder King's eyes, confirming that he was not lying. His heart thumped. Something must have happened during this period of time that caused the Dragon Group's status to rise greatly. Otherwise, the other party would not be so unrestrained. But could it be that he was just going to follow them? The Dragon Group was not a benevolent group. As long as he fell into their hands, it would be like a lamb entering the tiger's den. Even if he did not die, he would lose a layer of skin. Seeing Tang Zheng's expression change, the Thunder King said with killing intent, "There is no time for you to consider. Since you are not going to surrender, then we will take action directly. Resist as much as you want. The more you resist, the more people you kill, and the happier I will be." As if trying to goad him, these words caused Tang Zheng's eyelids to twitch. Flames of fury shot up within him. In the blink of an eye, the Thunder King waved his hand, and the other super soldiers charged forward. In an instant, the airport was in chaos, and screams rang out everywhere. This kind of scene was rare, and there were still many people who stopped to watch. Tang Zheng had originally wanted to call Su Yingtian to clarify things, but the other party's movements were too fast. Before he could take out his phone, the attack had already reached him. Tang Zheng frowned deeply, weighing the pros and cons. In the end, he decided not to take a loss for the time being. Otherwise, if he fell into the other party's hands, he would be at their mercy. "Do it," he called out in a low voice. Just as he was about to counterattack with his martial arts, he heard a thunderous voice ring out. "Stop, all of you stop. I want to see who dares to make a move today. Then I will definitely make him regret being born into this world." This voice was crude and filled with an explosive aura. However, it was as if it had a magical power, causing everyone to subconsciously stop what they were doing. The three heavenly kings frowned at the same time. Today, the three of them had made a move together, and that meant that they had a plan in mind. If Tang Zheng resisted, the three of them would work together to capture him, or even kill him directly. This was Xingfeng's plan. It was a pity that an unforeseen event had suddenly occurred. If they wanted to carry out this plan, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. Moreover, there was a possibility that they would achieve the opposite of what they wanted. Even the three heavenly kings could not bear this responsibility. Another group of people charged in, and like a spear, they charged at the people from the Dragon Group, causing them to sway unsteadily and fall into disarray. A tall figure came before Tang Zheng, frowning as he looked him up and down. Then he thumped heavily on his chest and said, "You brat, you really make people worry." Tang Zheng smiled slightly and said, "Chief Su, you came just in time. I had no choice but to come in time. Do you think I don't know your temper? If I had come just a little later, you would have directly torn down this airport. That would have been a huge mess." As he said that, Su Yingtian glanced at the people from the Dragon Group and said, "Wouldn't that be fulfilling their wishes? Humph, I won't just stand by and watch this kind of thing happen." The Thunder King's expression changed slightly, and he walked out, furiously saying, "Chief Su, Tang Zheng is someone that our boss specifically wants. Are you trying to stop us and go against the Dragon Group with such a big lineup?" Su Yingtian glanced at the other party in disdain, and said, "Who do you think you are to dare speak to me like that?" The Thunder King's face alternated between red and white as he roared furiously, "Su Yingtian, don't go too far." Su Yingtian ignored the Thunder King, and said, "Go back and tell your boss that if he wants to touch Tang Zheng, he will have to go through me first." "Hold it right there." Seeing that the other party was about to leave, the Thunder King quickly blocked his path. The others also moved, and the Dragon Group and the National Security Bureau were in a standoff. The flames of war seemed to be on the verge of erupting. Su Yingtian's expression did not change as he stared coldly at the Thunder King, and said, "You want to stop me? Don't blame me for being merciless. Su Yingtian, you should know that Tang Zheng is someone that the higher-ups specifically want. If you dare to take him away, that would be disobeying orders," the Thunder King said in exasperation. Su Yingtian pursed his lips and said, "The higher-ups? You want to use this to suppress me? Let me tell you, when I use this move, you won't even know where you are. Before you want to stop me, you'd better call your boss and ask for instructions." Otherwise, you'll suffer a loss and have no one to reason with. Su Yingtian's aura was strong, and his entire body was exuding a tyrannical aura. The Thunder King did not dare to underestimate him at all. Seeing him make such a solemn vow, the Thunder King felt a little guilty, and he took out his phone to make a call. Yes, I got it. After speaking for a while, the Thunder King's expression turned ugly. As he spoke, he raised his head to look at Tang Zheng and Su Yingtian, seemingly unwilling to accept this. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.